at the end of time.
O'clock.
Hey, we're back again, and it's Wednesday. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Because the microphone was acting up earlier, like it turned itself off.
Yeah.
As it does,
Yeah.
for no reason every now and then.
This should be a fun show. This is...
I mean, even though
it's all Beatles stuff.
There's a murder in it, but, you know,
yeah,
obviously.
but we're going to talk about other stuff, too. She's got some Beatles conspiracies and stuff that are, you know, around the band. Are we going to talk about the backward masking?
Yeah, a little bit. I will say that
Hidden
it's like
messages
the
in
Paul
Abbey
is
Road.
Dead one, which is probably the most famous Beatles
Yeah,
conspiracy.
yeah.
We did cover that some on. Remember when we did like a couple of rock and roll mysteries shows? I think
Yeah.
we talked about it on one of those shows.
Yeah, that's okay. Those other shows, though.
But yeah, I have a little bit of that. But then
Yeah.
like I found like a couple of other Beatles conspiracies that I had not heard before. And I was just kind of like, oh, this one's kind of. They're all batshit crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Me and Jen have such a huge video catalog, done so many shows. Sometimes we're going to repeat stuff, but it doesn't matter, man. We got fucking almost 15 years of damn shows out there. And, you know, it kind of sucks to refer back to another show because then you had to dig that out of the archives. It's better I got no problem with talking about something again.
Yeah, that's
Especially
fine.
if it came off a compilation where we did a show where we did a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
We can cover it again.
Yeah, like I said, I think we didn't do a whole show on Beatles conspiracies. We did a rock and roll mysteries show, so I kind of talked. I think I talked about the Paul is Dead conspiracy on that. Yeah. But we talked about like a bunch of other things.
I went back in time and watched some of our old shows, man, and realized how bad our audio was. The fucking on some of them, our microphone was horrible. Fucking, I was getting fat as fuck, man, 6 years ago. I look back and go, man, I was fat. Had hair, but I was fat. Wasn't worth it. I'm fucking getting fucking chiseled now. I'm going like, damn, I look like I got younger. Yeah. And Jen sounded like a little girl back then.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, she sounded like a little kid. Yeah.
I didn't even realize, like I said, because to me it was just kind of a slow progression.
Yeah,
you know, it's like I don't really listen to my own fucking voice all that much anyway. So I didn't really notice it.
I think part of it was the older microphones, though, too. Because we sounded really tinny in them.
Yeah, true. Like, I always tried to fix it, but there's only so much you can do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is actually, like, a much better microphone. It's still not top of the line, you know what I mean? But it's still, it's a good kind of...
That was still like a $400 mic, I think, wasn't it?
That one? No.
No, not that one. The other one was more expensive. That's like a $200 or $100.
Something like that, yeah. It was under $200, I'm pretty sure. But it's still pretty good. But yeah, and I remember one of you guys on Monday night asked if we had done a show on the yogurt shop murders. And I looked it up, and we did. We did do a show. It was a long time ago, but we did a show about the yogurt shop murders and also the Burger Chef murders. So it was kind of a twofer. I don't remember when it was, but it was a long time ago. Because I was sitting there thinking, I remembered I wrote about it, and I know they just think they solved it just recently. But I couldn't remember if we did a show on it. But we absolutely did, because I just looked it up out of curiosity.
Klaus and Tanya are in they're in the chat, and they're a couple. From Norway that I was talking to outside the show, and fucking Klaus sent me some of his fucking black metal, some Norwegian black metal bands that he was in. 2 different bands, and they were both good. The second one though, man, was fucking awesome.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, and
I
was like, man, and the recording was really good, and it was up there. It was you know, it's as good as fucking top notch metal. And the vocalist, he sounded really good. He was singing in English, and he sounded like a harder version of Ozzy. I was like, man, he sounds like Ozzy. And it's funny because I mentioned that to him. He goes, yeah, everybody said that he kind of sounded like Ozzy. But it was real hard, you know, but real good, you know. Kind of like gothic black metal. But it was a fusion of a lot of stuff in there, too, though. It was neat. Anyway, that vocalist that I liked, he got drunk and was walking home. Slipped on the ice up there in Norway, bashed his head in, fucking knocked him out, and he rolled off into the water and drowned. He sent me the fucking news papers and everything. I couldn't read it, but, you know, I could probably auto-translate it. But I was like, all right, wow, man, fucking unfortunate. Died young, too. He'd been good. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Oh yeah, he sounded better than better than Dave Mustaine. He was, fucking. I like Merciful Fate too. I think they were from Denmark, and it sounded better than that. Even though I like King Diamond, but yeah, it was interesting. But anyway, I just want to fucking give him a shout out for that's some badass metal. Yeah, I was impressed.
Klaus also said you have this topic tonight, and yesterday Paul McCartney started his world tour. I didn't know that, actually. I used to be like a big, huge Beatles fan. I kind of lost track of them over the years, but when I was growing up, my dad was a huge Beatles fan, so we always had, the Beatles playing in the house, and that was the first song. The first song I learned to play on the piano was either Michelle or Obla Di Obla Da, one of those two. I could play both of them, but I don't remember which one. I can't anymore. It's been a long time. But that's the first two I learned how to play. Because I had a Beatles songbook, and I learned how to play the piano out of that. And I had all the records and everything. CB said the dude that killed John Lennon keeps trying to get parole. He's up for it sometime next year, I think. Yeah, I think, well, I'm not sure how often his parole comes up. I think he was up for it in 2024, and it got denied. He's been up for it like 14 times.
They're not letting him out.
They're not letting him out. That dude is... Wow. This dude is... I didn't know... I knew like a little bit about him like before I started researching this, but wow, that dude like legit had some really serious mental issues.
Yeah.
Very serious. And I'm not entirely sure. I don't know, like he might have been just fated to do something like this, whether it was John Lennon or someone else, because he was thinking about, there was other people he was targeting too, or he was thinking about targeting, but
well, the only thing that stood out about that guy is that there wasn't anything to him. Not much to him.
And I think that was his main thing.
Yeah.
Like, some people can't just be a regular-ass person.
Yeah.
They have to be super special.
He wanted to be more than what he was.
And, so they always feel like they're being denied their greatness or whatever the hell, and that it's always somebody else's fault and, all this other stuff. Like I said... He legit had some mental issues, but man, some of the shit that he said. But it's crazy because he really didn't have any history of violence before he done that. He had some history of like mental illness, obviously, but nothing real violent. So it's just kind of interesting that he went that kind of way. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that Marine that just shot up that church. They're trying to spin that and to make that to something political. But no, a dude that knew him and like his mom said it wasn't political at all. They're doing it now. I think they kind of forgotten about him now. But when you find out what that dude was, is he had a girlfriend who was Mormon, and they broke up. And he always thought the Mormon Church was behind that, and he had a grudge against the Mormon Church. And one day he went down there. He thought they were kind of like the sum of all evil. He was Mormon for a while. One day he just went down there and shot it up. His mother said that he was the kind of guy that no matter what you said to him, he would twist it around to be the victim and that you're attacking him.
Yeah, a lot of people.
He was one of those.
A lot of people are like that.
Yeah, so she said just so nobody could deal with that.
Yeah, there's a certain type of personality, and like I said, I see it a lot actually. But there's a certain type of personality like that everything that happens, like it's someone else's responsibility, someone else's fault, someone's doing it at him.
Right.
A lot of dudes are like that.
Yeah, and you try to talk the guy out of it, and he'll flip it back around again. And
it's like, look, shit's nothing to do with you, bitch. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, well, and this might be out of left field, but it's just kind of like the same mindset as somebody like Elliot Rodger or somebody like that. That it's just like, girl walking down the street with her boyfriend, and somehow she's doing something at him.
Yeah.
Even though she doesn't even know who the fuck he is.
Yeah, well, she's doing something at him. She's not fucking going out with him. And
so it's
that's
just
an attack against me.
So like that's a severely narcissistic. You really think you're like the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is NPCs that should just bow to your fucking will.
Yeah.
And I think Mark David Chapman had a bit of that too. And most of the documentaries that I watched about him, said probably his main problem was narcissistic personality disorder, because he really thought that he should be great and he couldn't understand why he wasn't. And then he finally got to a point, and he had depressive episodes too, like he was suicidal and things of that nature, but he really thought that he deserved to be famous.
Yeah.
And the fact that that wasn't happening and that he was having this sort of dead end, or it wasn't really a dead end life, it was just a regular ass life, you know what I mean? But that wasn't good enough, and so he thought he's never going to do anything great, so he's got to do something terrible. Although the weird thing about it is that I don't think he thought that shooting John Lennon was terrible. He even said, because there's interviews with him, he even said that that he didn't think what he was doing, I don't know how he thinks about it now, but like he was saying at the time, he didn't think it was a bad thing. He thought he was doing the right thing. So I don't know if he's just saying that because, you know, he wants people to think he's crazy, or I don't know. I'm
What's
not
that
entirely
sound? It sounds like it's running water.
It's the washing machine.
Oh, washing machine.
Remember how the washing machine, when it goes in the spin cycle?
Yeah, that's what it is.
It makes that squeaky sound.
Oh, so, yeah, let me shut that door.
Yeah, because it's pretty loud. Because I heard that earlier, and I was just like, oh man, that washing machine.
Yeah.
It works. It just makes like a really horrible noise, like when it's in the spin cycle. That's all. Papa77 says, see, I was wondering this too. Why do we always use all three names of assassins? I'm not sure. I think it might be because they want to distinguish it. Because if somebody, especially if it's a real common name,
Yeah, they got to distinguish it.
they have to distinguish it from everybody else that has that same first and last name. It's like, we're not talking about you, bro. It's like,
Yeah.
we're not talking about Mark Chapman, the nice person.
Yeah.
We're talking about Mark David Chapman,
Yeah.
the assassin of John Lennon. That's who we're talking about. So it might be because of that. Because, yeah, like a lot of serial killers and stuff like that, they'll refer to them with their first, middle, and last names. And I think that's why. I mean, that's the only logical reason I can think of. I could be totally pulling that out of my ass. But that just made sense to me.
He's got a common name. You're going to have to give all three names.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Chapman, that's a pretty common name.
If your name's Dennis Rader, that's all you need to know. There aren't many Dennis Raders out there.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure there's more than one.
Yeah, he's pretty distinct.
How
though.
much would it suck if, like, a serial killer had your fucking name?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, I mean, look, I mean, you have a pretty common name.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah,
what
there's
if...
probably a lot of guys with my name in prison.
Yeah, there's probably are.
Yeah.
And it's like, there might be one that's a serial killer.
Yeah, there might be a white one.
And then, yeah, and so it's a kind of a
A
thing
lot of
where...
black people named Ross.
So there
I
might
think
be...
in the United States, I think there's probably more black people with the last name Ross than white people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know.
It's a southern name, yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, I'm not really sure, like... So they'd have to start referring to them as
Yeah.
Thomas, whatever middle name, Ross, to like distinguish him from people like you. They're just like, hey, I'm not a serial killer, okay? That we know of. But, Tom Baker, the name, George Bush, serial killer. Yeah, that's why... Well, they always called him George W. Bush because his dad's name was also George Bush, and it'd be so like a pain in the ass to be like Junior, or wasn't he like a third? Wasn't he the third? I don't even remember. It's been so long. That seemed like 400 years ago, to be honest. Yeah. John Gore says, if your last name is Rader, you kind of have to do some rating. I mean, that he might have thought that. Although his name, his name did not have an I in it.
Yeah.
It was just Rader.
Rader. Okay, yeah.
Which kind of sounds more like...
It sounds like it's misspelled.
Sounds like it's misspelled, or it sounds like something in... I don't... For some reason, it reminds me of Rad-X, the stuff that's from Fallout. I don't know why it's good. I don't know why it reminds me of that. But yeah. So, you know what I mean. Yeah, see, we said it's like the guy that killed the actress in 1989 after getting a PI to get her a dress for him and knocked on her door and shot her in the chest when she answered it. Yeah, that happened. What was her name? Shit, now I can't think of it. Like, I could probably think of it if I was completely sober. But yeah, I think, well, the thing with John Lennon getting shot, like I said, we'll probably do Beatles Conspiracies first and then get into the John Lennon thing because that's like a lot more time consuming. But the thing about John Lennon getting shot was that prior to that, I kind of feel like celebrities maybe didn't fear for their lives as much. I don't think they didn't, or they weren't fully cognizant of like celebrity stalkers like the way people are nowadays. And now you're just kind of like, if you're a famous person, yeah, you're going to get like a small percentage of that. And you got to watch your ass because, yeah, like one or two of them might potentially kill you. You don't know. There's a lot of nuts out there. So I don't really think that
The thing is,
people were aware of that back then until that happened to him because he was just... you know, he was very famous around the world, but he was living in New York City, and New York City kind of has a reputation for, you know, a lot of celebrities live there and they just walk around like nobody bothers them. You know, that's kind of one of the things that a lot of people like, or a lot of celebrities like about living there, is that they don't get hassled. So he would just like walk around like a regular ass person. And I think that was one of the things that Mark David Chapman found, because he had like another, it wasn't necessarily a hit list, but he had some other celebrities that he was thinking about maybe he would do it to, because he just wanted to get famous. He didn't really care particularly who it was he killed. But I think he chose John Lennon in the end for a couple reasons. One, because he had been a fan when he was a kid, and two, because he was accessible. Like everybody knew where he lived. You know, he came out, like he went to the studio with Yoko and stuff like that. They just walked around. So it wasn't like they were trying to be, they didn't have bodyguards or nothing. They just walked around like regular ass people. So I think that was one of the reasons that he targeted him specifically, you know. Yeah, Klaus said Mark actually told his lawyer that he would plead guilty because God had told him to. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this dude's, like I said, he's got some fucking problems. Got some problems. I wasn't aware. I kind of knew like the broad outlines of his problems, but when I was watching all these documentaries about him, I'm like, wow, he's like way crazier than I could have imagined. It's kind of sad because he kind of exhibited a lot of signs of it from childhood. So I'm not really sure. He probably could have been helped. I don't know.
What are you gonna tell us about him?
Yeah, but like I said, I wanted to do that. I was thinking about doing the John Lennon thing first, but then I was thinking probably not, because that would take longer.
Okay.
So it's like I'll probably do the conspiracy stuff first, and then we'll get. But speaking of, well, here's kind of a thing that links the two things. There is actually kind of a minor conspiracy about the John Lennon murder itself. The conspiracy being that Mark David Chapman didn't really shoot him, but really it was like a CIA assassination.
Yeah.
Because John Lennon the FBI did kind of keep tabs on him and shit like that, because
They thought he was going to start a revolution.
Because of all that
They were worried,
kind of nonsense. So yeah, like a lot of people were kind of under surveillance by the FBI, including Marilyn Monroe, as we talked about on the Marilyn Monroe show. You know, allegedly she was also like under surveillance. So yeah, so there's conspiracy theory about that. But let's kind of talk about some conspiracy theories first. We'll do the kind of fun shit, and then we'll get into the kind of grim, depressing shit. Like, you know what I mean? How about that?
All right.
So, like I said, on the Rock and Roll Mystery Show that we did before, we kind of talked a little bit about the Paul is dead conspiracy, which is probably the most famous conspiracy theory associated with the Beatles. So I'll just kind of give a broad outline in case you've never heard it. I don't know how you wouldn't know about it, because I feel like everybody does.
I was a little kid. I remember it.
But yeah, I can, you know what I mean? But, you know, I don't know. Like, some people are maybe not from this country or from the UK or whatever. Or maybe they're young and they don't know about it or whatever. So I'll just kind of give a thing. Yeah. So there's a very, very common, very pervasive conspiracy theory that Paul McCartney of the Beatles died in a car crash on November 9th, 1966, and was secretly replaced by a lookalike. Now, this lookalike specifically was this orphan that they found named William Shears Campbell, hence Billy Shears in the Sgt. Pepper's song. And he had won a Paul McCartney lookalike contest in Edinburgh in Scotland. And so they said, hey, once Paul McCartney... Because the story goes that Paul McCartney had a fight with the other members of the Beatles, and he kind of like was all pissed off and got in his car and took off and got in a wreck and he died. And I think in some versions of the story he was even like decapitated, because, you know, had to have to add that little extra bit of gruesomeness there in the story. And then he got replaced because by that time, you know, they were pretty famous, and it's like, oh no, we can't like stop the gravy train or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, so they had to replace him with somebody.
Yeah, I remember the story.
Yeah. And the funny thing, and this is kind of true of most conspiracy theories, is that the evidence they come up with to support them is just like, so, man, it's Olympic level reaching. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. Like, I can see a couple things being weird and stuff like that, but this shit they come up with, I think one of the main things that people point to as far as the Paul is dead thing is the Abbey Road cover, right? That iconic photo of them walking across the crosswalk.
What year was that?
Yeah, when did that come out? I thought that was 67.
Okay.
Abbey Road. 68. Shit,
Something like that,
I
yeah.
can't remember now. But it's like that. There was that kind of, or you know, if he died in 1966.
Right.
I'm assuming they're saying that was the double on the cover of Abbey Road, because as they're pointing out, it's like, look, Paul McCartney is the only one with bare feet, like he doesn't have shoes on. His step is like out of step with the others, like the other ones have their legs like that, and he's like that. And also, this is kind of, I don't know who came up with this, but they're like, the order that they're in is like a funeral procession. Like Ringo's in black, like he's the Undertaker. And George Harrison has just like jeans and like a chambray shirt on, like he's the grave digger. And then John Lennon's all in white, like he's the preacher or the angel or whatever. And it's just like the position. And then Paul McCartney's like the body, like in the middle, you know what I mean? So it's like that. And I'm just like, again, that seems like a reach. Also, there's a car in the photo, and I think the license plate says, doesn't it say 28IF? Like on the car.
I don't remember.
And so people are saying, oh, that means Paul McCartney would have been 28 if he hadn't died. You know what I mean? Like that kind of shit. Which, again, reach.
Yeah.
And then there's all the backward masking stuff.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me tell you something.
What's this?
I remember that story. Remember I tell you that my my babysitter, Kimmy, would take me over to her house and all her friends would be over there and they'd be fucking listening to albums and, you know, she was a little bit older than me. She was probably about 13, maybe 14. That time, probably 13, and I must have been around 7 or 8. And I remember her and her friends talking about that, and they were looking at that record cover, and the whole thing they were saying, "Yeah, he's dead." They think he's dead, and it was
very, very
the original one. He's
pervasive.
gone. He's been replaced with another one, and they were like, "Ooh, that's so creepy." But all the shit they were talking about, and I'm looking at that photo, and I'm like 8, you know. Probably underneath the covers and shit, you know, and I'm just looking on the floor, you know, fucking, probably going, yeah, that's creepy shit. And all the girls are like weirding each other out, and I'm getting weirded out, like, yeah, that's some spooky shit. Just funny, just something funny from, you know, my childhood. All these fucking 12, 13-year-old girls taking care of me. They were just rocking out. Probably smoking pot, too. Because probably smoking pot and fucking listening to all these albums. But it just kind of goes back to the lifestyle of that era. There wasn't any internet, no connectivity. There wasn't cable TV at that time either. Nothing was view on demand when it came to video. You know, it was just they showed you whatever. You only had a few channels. You had to wait for it to come on. You'd never see it again. The only thing that was like the internet or an interactive media were those records. They would sit down and listen to those records and look at that album cover.
Read all the lyrics.
Read the lyrics, and then they would overanalyze the fucking album covers.
What else did you have to do, really?
Yeah,
Plus
you just
all
look at
the
the album
drugs
cover, listen to the
didn't
music, and a lot of those bands knew that the fans would be studying those album covers.
Yeah.
Because that's how they grew up. So there was all kinds of shit in those album covers to trip you out. And the Beatles were good at that too. They had shit that would, you know, the Sgt. Pepper's band, the Sgt. Pepper's album cover was a trip. And
I fucking love that.
Yeah,
with all the people in there.
The Led Zeppelin album covers were a trip. You weren't really sure what to make out of them, you know, especially like Houses of the Holy. That was hard to understand. And fucking Stairway to Heaven, you know, the lyrics, like what the fuck are they talking about, you know? Maybe you hadn't read Tolkien's, because they'd be talking about fucking, you know, in the darkest depths of Mordor, you know, fucking, you had to fucking read The Hobbit and the Three Kings and all that.
Which back
shit,
then people were just probably like, "Ooh, that sounded really cool," but like now everybody knows what that is.
You know where Mordor is,
yeah. So it doesn't really sound quite as cool anymore. Because there's no mystery to it.
Right, you know, and the Black Sabbath 1 album cover, that fucking spooky ass witch out in the fucking field. So there was a whole culture. That was the social media of the day. There was a whole culture of teenagers looking at those album covers and fucking listening to what rock stars are saying and how they're interacting with each other and all these legends that would come up around them. So a young person of today probably couldn't understand where these stories came from and how they related. You didn't have the proper perspective. It would be like internet memes of today, kind of. Those album covers.
It's kind of, it's
be like that. become like a website.
People haven't changed, just
Yeah.
the medium has changed.
Yeah, just the medium change.
Because people still believe dumb conspiracy shit nowadays.
Yeah,
Maybe even more so.
Record albums, tapes, and bands were our social media. That's how we did it back then. It wasn't interactive.
And I think, too, and the Beatles particularly, I think they really understood, too, how much... I think they were kind of having fun with it, obviously. Like a lot of musicians
I'm
did.
sure they knew the Paul's Dead thing. I'm sure they knew all that shit.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they heard it.
Playing Revolution Number 9 had a bunch of shit in it.
Well, that's what... And, well, the thing about... Okay, so the thing about Revolution Number 9, though, which I was just going to mention, was that if you play it backwards, everyone says, there's a bit in it that sounds like John Lennon is saying, Paul is a dead man, miss him.
Yeah.
To me, I've heard it hundreds of times. It doesn't really sound like that. Honestly, kinda, sorta, but it also sounds just like random ass backwards masking, which is what all backwards masking sounds like to me.
Well, something was recorded backwards on there, but I don't think it's words. Remember, in the background, something's playing that is playing in reverse. And then if you spin the album backwards, it sounds forward. But if I remember correctly, it's just people in a restaurant talking or something. It sounds like fucking background. That's how I remember it. It's been a long time. I thought there was something there. But then one phrase sounds like, turn me on, dead man.
Yeah.
But it's not...
Kinda.
But you're just making it. You're just seeing it.
But
like,
you've heard people telling you that it says that, and so
Yeah.
you're primed to hear that.
Right.
If you're listening to it kind of objectively, it's like, yeah, it kind of sounds like that, but it
Yeah.
also just sounds like random noise that sort of
Yeah.
could be massaged to sound like that.
Yeah, all the bad were masking shit, pretty much, except on shit like Venom, which was a satanic black metal band. They would record shit backwards and play it forward.
Well, yeah, because once everybody
knew you were
got
gonna do it
their
backwards.
panties in a bunch about it,
Yeah.
now everybody's going to do it on purpose.
Yeah, you'd hear some of that shit going.
Yeah,
But the thing is that going backwards, it was the same fucking demonic shit that it was saying when it was going forwards.
Well, yeah, so
it
it's
is-
not like...
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I said, when somebody figured that, like... And the Beatles, it's crazy to think about nowadays because they seem... this many decades later, they seem kind of innocuous, but... At the time, big Christian groups and stuff like that were saying, bring your Beatles records, we're going to burn them.
Yeah.
Especially after John Lennon made that crack that they were bigger than Jesus. They were more popular than Jesus, which
They probably were.
was true.
Yeah.
So
At that time, yeah.
can't be too mad, sorry. I wasn't mad, but they got mad about that.
Oh, yeah, just the people were more sensitive back then.
They were very sensitive. Very sensitive.
Yeah, just you said something sideways.
Look how long their hair is. Even when even in the 60s, when they first came to the United States and played on Ed Sullivan and all that, like in 1964, I think that was, like but with the hippies, they had long hair. Their hair, by today's standards, that is not long hair.
Yeah.
They had long hair later, like they looked kind of more like hippies later, like in the late 60s, like a lot of people did, but their hair was it was kind of shaggy, but that's a lot of people had that.
All that shit from the 60s was planting the seeds to the satanic panic of the 70s and 80s when me and Jenny were growing up.
Yeah, like all the fucking pearl clutching about...
the satanic panic, yeah. They really thought there were satanic
They
cults.
pearl clutched about Elvis, too.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, no one can have nice things. We can't have nice things. Someone's going to whine about it.
Yeah, and they were pearl clutching about Elvis because he was too black. And now they pearl clutch about Elvis because they're saying he was a racist, which he wasn't. He was just a regular Southern guy from the time. He had a lot of black friends and came up in black music in Mississippi and Tennessee. He was friends with Little Richard, and he knew Little Richard. He was friends with James Brown. They were going to make an album together. James Brown fucking lost it at this funeral and shit. Fucking, got time alone with fucking Elvis and shit, the body. There was just... Really, the thing that fucking Elvis being racist, that actually came from fucking Chuck D, fucking from Public Enemy, and he says it just sounded cool. He just made that up for that lyrics from Public Enemy.
He's like, and it kind of got...
Yeah, he felt bad about it because he goes, no, he was, Elvis was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He was writing fucking... Basically, he wrote fucking a lot of social activism songs about fucking anti-fucking discrimination and stuff, Elvis was into that.
Yeah, and like I said, we talked about a lot of stuff like where he would work with black musicians, and at that time, like they weren't even allowed to come in the front entrance, or like they weren't, you know, and he wouldn't play there unless they were allowed to.
You had black people on a team, you know, especially like female backup singers. And they were in the segregated part of the South. They go, oh, she can't come in, she can't play. Oh, then I ain't playing the show.
Then he would say he wasn't going to.
And they go, okay. He'd drop his nuts.
Yeah.
So he would get black.
And he had the power to do that.
He had the power to do it. Yeah.
So you know.
Right.
Oracle says they pearl clutched over swing music back in the day, for that matter. Yeah, there's always a contingent of people that just, they don't like change. They don't like anything those young people are doing, because I think it's just because, like, I don't really care about this, but I know that there's, like, a certain subset of people that after their heyday has passed and they are getting older, instead of just gracefully accepting that and just being happy doing whatever it is they're doing, they have to shit on generations after them and being like, well, that, you know, that's not as cool as what we had, or that's not, you know, back in my day, blah, blah, blah. Like, I always hated that fucking mindset, because I said all that is you realizing that you're not relevant anymore. Yeah. And that scares you and makes you angry, and you're lashing out at people that just grew up at a different time than you, and it's not their fault. You know what I mean? They were just born when they were born, just like you were. And the crazy thing is that it happens like every generation, and they forget, you know, people that bitched about Elvis, for example, or whatever, it's like they forget that their parents bitched at them about the music they listened to when they were teenagers.
This goes all the way back to
stupid. It goes back to ancient Greece, for Christ's sake.
It goes back into the fucking ancient honky motherland of fucking Saxony and shit. The fucking Saxon warlords were pissed that their sons weren't wearing a Chelsea haircut, which that's what a real warrior wore, which is just shaved head with just bags, so you could wear chain mail. They had long hair everywhere, which is, you know, ended up being a Saxon haircut. So it goes way back. That kind of shit.
Yeah, I think like every generation. A certain segment, not everybody goes like this, but because like I said, I'm not like this. I couldn't care less, but and I don't have kids. That might also make a difference. But you get to a point where you're getting old and you realize that you're not the center of culture anymore. You're not cool anymore. You're not who most of the advertising is aimed at, or something like that. Yeah. And you start to feel irrelevant, and that makes you angry. Away.
Yeah.
And so you lash out the only way you know how. It's just like, oh, their music today, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's always that kind of
crap. There was
crap.
a tendency for the older generations of men to say that the younger generations of men were too soft.
They've been saying that for thousands and thousands of years.
I looked more deeply into it, and there is something to that. Because what would happen is hard motherfuckers would build it, carve out a new nation, a new culture that would last a few generations, and then they came from hard living, but they made a nicer, easier world for their sons to grow up in, so they were a little bit softer.
Which is usually what you want. I mean, you want the world to be easier for your kids. You don't want them to have to go through all the crap you went through. But then those dudes grow up, and problems start arising at that point, and then it gets harder again. So it's more like a cycle. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
They get softer, and then they got to harden back up. And then they get hard, and they soften back up when they sit. So it's a cycle of having problems, fixing problems, making a better life, and then it gets problematic again. So it's a generational cycle.
It is, yeah.
I mean, I could never compare to, like, my grandfather's generation. They fucking grew up in the Depression, in the Deep South. And then went to the fucking Second World War. Those motherfuckers were tough as nails. They didn't have anything. Instead of chewing gum, they chewed fucking tar.
I mean, they were used to not having
they had nothing. Then they fucking fought a pretty brutal fucking war of annihilation against the Japanese in those islands, and they were doing shit in Germany. And when they came back, they were just they drank themselves to death, basically. They were fucking hard dudes. Were they happy? Yeah.
I don't even know. They were happy to have
survived it, I think. But I don't. Their standards were very different.
I don't think they expected to be happy.
No, and they were cool in some ways, but in other ways they were kind of like, you couldn't take them anywhere. They were not acceptable. You couldn't take them out today. They'd go to a club, they'd get drunk, they'd be grabbing tits and ass everywhere. They were barbaric.
And then they get their teeth punched out.
Yeah, they get their teeth punched out.
Especially
they get arrested.
Get arrested
and shit. Well, when they were young, they would have been uncontrollable.
Even a little bitch like me could knock them out with these.
They would have been considered to be very sexist, real fucking
Yeah.
He-Man. You know what I mean? Even though they were skinny,
The He-Man.
they weren't big jacked motherfuckers like me. They were skinny.
Yeah.
You know, fucking funny.
Like I said, I could probably knock them out.
Yeah.
And especially because
They reminded me.
Because they're old now.
They reminded me of like Chinese people in their 50s and 60s of today. They were kind of like that.
Because if some old motherfucker came up to me and tried to grab my tit, oh, I'm absolutely not. I don't give a shit.
Like, what's wrong, baby?
I don't give a shit if you're 70 or not.
What's wrong, baby? You're
I am
showing
knocking
them.
you right the
You're
fuck
showing
out.
them.
I'm knocking your dentures across the fucking room.
You're showing them. That means I can grab them. I think women were easier to get back then.
Or they really...
They put up with shit.
Or they just put up with more.
Yeah, they thought things were... They just thought it was funny, I think.
I don't know if they thought it was funny. I just think they thought, well, there wasn't anything they could do about it.
Maybe.
I think they thought
maybe there wasn't anything they could do about it.
That's what I mean. I think they realized there was nothing they could do about it.
I just think
because even if you complained about it, even if everybody complained about it, even if they complained about it, everyone would just be like, "Oh, that's just the way they are. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, it probably was like.
Yeah, so it's like, why bother complaining? Even if you didn't like it, like no one's gonna listen to you.
Yeah, they just came up from a different time.
High Desert said, we just wondered if anyone does anyone pearl clutch over bands nowadays?
No, nobody knows any bands.
Not really. Like I said, I do see. I don't know if I'd call it pearl clutching, but I do see like whining about like. So, but you have to be like pretty famous for for that to even filter through to me. Like if somebody's complaining about some obscure black metal band somewhere or something, it's like obviously I'm not going to hear about that.
I think the last pearl clutching I ever heard was Miley Cyrus showing her cooch on stage. But
yeah,
who
maybe.
gives a shit about that? And that was what, 2008?
Half the population got cooches, baby.
Yeah.
It's just like
on stage fucking acting like a slut. You could see her cooch up her fucking skirt. You know what I mean? But you went to her show. You paid to go to her show.
Yeah.
If she wants to fucking pop her cooch out on you, fucking you paid to see it. You're her fan. I like Miley Cyrus though. She did a good number with fucking did a good version of Rebel Yell with fucking Billy Idol when he was still looking good. He was about 56 probably at that time. Jack, they did a live show. Remember that little? You can see it on YouTube.
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
She's isn't she the daughter of Billy Ray Cyrus?
Yeah, and I think they were trying to hold her up to well, she's not country. Billy Ray Cyrus isn't country. Country music is fake.
He was horrible.
Yeah, American country music's fake. I'm from the country and fucking.
And like I said, I'm not saying it should be banned or burn their records or anything like that. I'm just saying I'm not really into it.
Yeah, country music's fake.
And don't make me listen to it. Because I don't like it. It's really fucking annoying.
We listen to metal and new wave.
You know?
And
that's
fucking
all
punk rock. We were from the country.
Zach is asking, what are our favorite Beatles songs? Ooh. Oh, man.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Honestly, I was super, super, super into, when I was growing up, Abbey Road was probably my favorite. So I loved that whole medley at the end that had Carry That Weight and all of that. I loved that. Long and Winding Road, like I was really into that.
I liked a lot of Wings too. Remember?
Actually, Wings is pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
I loved the White Album, especially like Glass Onion, and I liked like Martha, My Dear, like all the weird like retro shit they did. I liked that.
They didn't have anything that was bad.
No, I liked like pretty much
good,
everything, and I even liked like their old kind of more just rock and roll kind of stuff. I liked that too.
But I gotta say, you know, the Beatles, they were a legendary band. I'm gonna give them credit. They were great. I liked the Rolling Stones better.
Rolling Stones are good, but like I said, they were more of just a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, sometimes you're in the mood for that. The Beatles were a lot more experimental, and I was kind of more into that.
Yeah.
Which is why I like a lot of the Beatles' later stuff.
Yeah.
More like I said, like I liked Abbey Road and White Album and Sgt. Pepper and Rubber Soul and all of that. But I like their early kind of more poppy stuff too. But I like their later shit better.
The British, you know, they had good experimental shit. You know, I mean, there was a lot of good British shit, and they gave a lot of. The British were a huge gift to the English speaking world when it went in the music for a long time. It's kind of petered out lately. The British New Wave was the last thing that they gave. But they brought fucking the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. You know, they had a lot of good shit.
Pretty much all the best new wave shit was British.
Duran Duran was like the second coming of the Beatles for the United States.
Big time.
But I got to tell you, when it came to experimental American music, I'm gonna give it to Jimi Hendrix, and Jimmy was fucking the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Even though he had a British band, because a lot of American guys wouldn't play with him, he was too crazy. They're like, what kind of music is that? So he had a British backup band. So it was kind of like an Anglo-American band. That was experimental. Another one would have been Jim Morrison and the Doors. That was like our version of the Beatles. Fucking the Doors didn't have a bad song, and a lot of that shit was experimental. The closest American equivalent to the Doors to the Beatles probably would have been the Doors. They were good.
Yeah, I mean, the Beatles were kind of...
They were around a lot longer. Beatles was around a lot longer.
Well, and they were kind of their own thing, too, because they were so fucking famous. I mean, I don't think it can be overstated how fucking famous they were.
Yeah.
They
basically conquered the globe.
Yeah.
I don't think the Doors did.
No.
But the Doors was...
Not to the same
For the American
extent.
experience, fucking Doors was... And I really got to give credit to fucking Led Zeppelin, too. The British brought that out. They were very good. Really good.
But yeah, I think my first exposure to the Beatles, I think, was the Sgt. Pepper's album when I was a kid, because my dad had it, and I really got into that because it's weird. It's kind of a weird. It's like a concept album, and it's like, so I think that was my first experience with like this whole big concept album, and I really got into it. Like I said, I think over. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth between Abbey Road and the White Album being my favorite, as far as just listening to the whole thing straight through. So pretty much any of the songs on that would probably be my favorites. Although there's probably a million more that I'm forgetting. There's like so many good ones. But yeah, and I understand that some people do not like the Beatles, and that's fine. I'm not saying that you should, and I'm not saying, because everyone's musical taste is very subjective, obviously. I really like them. That was kind of the first band I really got into when I was a child, because my dad was really into them, and we kind of listened to them a lot together. So, so I kind of have a personal connection to it. He had Rolling Stones and stuff too, and I also liked that. But the Rolling Stones are a great band, but they weren't as interesting to me. You know what I mean? Because they weren't doing weird shit. I like weird shit. And the Beatles were kind of doing weird shit, especially for the time.
Yeah, the Beatles were kind of like proto-prog rock. They were doing things they were doing experimental shit that I think ended up inspiring bands like Pink Floyd and Alan Parsons Project and all that shit.
Zach says, seems like most of the big UK artists in the last 20 years or so have been women. Adele, Amy Winehouse, Charlie. Yeah. And honestly, I fucking love Amy Winehouse. I know that's like, she's fucking awesome. She was a tragic dumpster fire of a person, poor thing. But she had some problems. But holy shit, she could sing. What a great fucking voice she had. And I just love the fucking... I don't know. I just love that fucking retro vibe of her music. I was just like really into that. I have like a bunch of her albums actually. Like it's still on my Spotify. But yeah. So but yeah, it's just kind of interesting. Yeah, Klaus says my first experience was Please Please Me. That was actually the first song that got real big. I think in the UK. Like I said, we didn't get... I mean, the US kind of knew who they were, but we didn't really get the full extent of it until a bit later when they came over here and were like on TV in 1964. But yeah, all right. So one of the other things that was talking about backwards masking, as we were, is there's a bit... I don't even think this is backward masking, but there's a bit at the end of Strawberry Fields Forever, which again, but like that's probably again one of my favorite Beatles songs. That's a great fucking song. But where it sounds like, not to me, but apparently to like a lot of people, that John Lennon says, because there's a bunch of just voices and random stuff, and it sounds like he's saying I buried Paul. And a lot of people pointed to that, like for the Paul is dead thing. Like I said, there's a million different tendrils and like little clues that people find. Like some people spend their entire fucking lives like looking for clues for this, which I mean, if that's how you want to spend your time, fine, but it's just kind of like it's kind of sad, but whatever. But they found out later on, and John Lennon said that that's not actually what he was saying. He was actually saying cranberry sauce, But I don't know if he was really saying cranberry sauce. I haven't heard it in a long time, so it's like I can't really remember like how clear that was. Or if he was just fucking with people or what. I definitely don't think he said I buried Paul, though. It doesn't sound like that to me. But I can't actually discern what it is that he's saying. But he says that he says cranberry sauce. But he didn't say I buried Paul at all. But yeah, I think the Abbey Road album, though, is that's kind of the main thing that people use. Because everybody thinks, and see, okay, but the problem with this kind of thinking, that it's like, oh, you know, Paul's barefoot on the cover, and, you know, and the whole procession, it looks like a funeral procession, all of that kind of stuff. That kind of thinking, you know what that leads to? Charles Manson. That's what that fucking leads to. Because he also thought that the Beatles were sending him fucking secret messages on the White Album. He was like overanalyzing that shit. And then he somehow discerned from the messages that the Beatles were sending him through their music that he should start a race war and all this other kind of crap. So like I said, that kind of mindset, it's not a good road to go down. Because like I said, you're going into Charles Manson direction is what you're doing.
Yeah, Tom, Jen loves Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, I was just saying that. I really like Amy Winehouse.
Got a super chat.
Like, thank you very much. We got a super chat from Bryce. Paul is definitely dead, LOL. Also, Elvis is still alive. Yeah. And he's hanging out with Bigfoot on the spaceship. You know?
Yeah, what's up? What's up? What you doing? Come here.
But yeah, like I said, it's definitely a spectrum. This kind of thinking. It does lead to Charles Manson kind of shit.
Well, what sucked back then, there was only a few television stations, and each town each city probably had 3 or 4 radio stations, and probably 1 rock station. So everything was being channeled through a very small lens, and everybody was looking through that lens.
Yeah.
So if you were famous back then, you were fucking super famous.
Everybody knew who you were.
And nobody else. There wasn't like today where you have people like me and Jen who are just like very minor famous people.
I wouldn't even call us famous.
Well, we've been recognized before.
We have been recognized before.
Like, hey, I saw your show. Yeah, you know. But, you know.
But it's not like we can't go to the grocery store.
Right.
Shit like that because people, we get mobbed or anything.
This fame has been divided up among now probably millions of people.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of famous people that are just not as famous as they used to be. A few very famous people. And what's funny is you got some very, very famous people that most people don't know. Like you can say, who? And then you turn out and you look at that person, they got 3 million fucking followers.
Yeah.
And you know, and people that fucking love them. Listening to
well,
their
yeah,
music,
that's
whatever.
the thing. If some band or something like that had 3 million followers or something like that was walking around in Publix, I probably wouldn't know who they were.
Yeah, you wouldn't know who they were. But you know, Beatles would probably the Beatles had like fucking
everybody knew who
80% of the English speaking world knew who the Beatles were and could recognize.
They
those
couldn't
guys.
go anywhere.
Couldn't go anywhere.
Well, like I said, that was one of the reasons that John Lennon moved to New York City because, like, in the UK and stuff like that, he couldn't fucking walk around like a normal person. He would just get fucking mobbed everywhere. And even in New York, where people tend to leave you alone, he had people that just hung out outside the building all the time, like hoping to take pictures of him or get an autograph, like when he came out. So, you know, hence why Mark David Chapman, nobody thought that was weird, that he was hanging out outside the building, because a lot of people did that. Yeah. So, you know, and nobody thought it was weird back then, because this hadn't really happened, you know, up until 1980 when that happened. It wasn't really a thing.
As famous as Glenn Danzig was, it was hard to believe that back in the day, when he was real fucking famous, in the 90s, he was living in a little dumpy house in fucking L.A.
Yeah.
You look at it and you're like, he lives in there? Fucking, he sold that shit, and then there were pictures of the inside. It was all fucked up. This cat fucking pulled all the fucking furniture apart.
Well, I mean, cats will do that,
to be fair. It was like a dumpy little house. I mean, it wouldn't even compare to this. This is a mansion compared to fucking the way Danzig lived when he was fucking at the height of his fame. And then that house sold for like $1.5 million.
I mean, yeah, it is LA.
Because it was just...
It's probably in a good area.
It was in an area, yeah. But you look at it and you're like, that?
And honestly, like, if the land was in a good spot, you could just tear that shit down and build something better.
And it was a junky old fucking house, yeah.
Bryce says, loving the fur, baby. Yeah, Pookie likes to be on the show sometimes.
Yeah, she been and cries and fucking wants attention.
Yeah. Whenever we do the show, like Bambi doesn't do that. She'll just sit by the door and just be chill. But
she knows that what we do for the show. She doesn't know what a show is, but she knows we're going to be doing this for
as soon as we come in, like getting ready to do it, she comes in and starts running around by her feet and stuff. It's like, hey.
Stop talking to those lights.
Pet me.
Yeah.
Give me food or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's letting you sit in her lap for a long time. Is she licking?
Yeah, licking.
You scratch her.
Starts licking.
You scratch her and she starts licking whatever is, if it's your arm or a table edge or whatever. It's like pretty funny. So like I said, Paul is dead, probably the most famous. However, this next one is kind of like the opposite of that, and I admit I had never heard this one. We got another super chat. Thank you very much from High Desert.
What's up, High?
What would you all do if something happened and you became really famous?
Wouldn't change much. I don't
Probably
think.
not.
We'd pay off all our credit card debts.
That would be the first thing I would do.
Yeah, and I'd pay the house off.
That's the second thing I would do. Depending on how famous we're talking and how rich we're talking.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it's much better to be rich than famous. Because if you're just rich and nobody knows what your fucking face looks like, then you can just do whatever the fuck you want. If you're famous, it kind of sucks. Like, you can't just go out and do normal shit. Like, hey, I gotta go buy some, like, embarrassing shit from CVS or whatever.
And look at Danzig and kitty litter.
Yeah, right. And it's just kitty litter.
Yeah, you
got
cats.
That's not even embarrassing.
Yeah.
I buy kitty litter all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know what I mean? You have cats, you buy kitty litter. It's not weird. So, but I mean, if you're in there buying, like, something really embarrassing, like, I don't know, like adult diapers or something. So, you know. But you can't go anywhere. I'm not really sure. I've thought about that. Not like it would ever happen, but I've thought about that. I don't know. I can't really say. I don't think it would change me as a person because I'm too fucking old, like, to change now. Maybe it'd be different if I was young.
Yeah,
it happened when I was young. Like when you're younger. But like once you're older and your identity is kind of pretty firmly established,
it does.
I don't think it affects you as much.
Look at what it did to Sinead O'Connor.
That poor girl. I feel so bad for her. But we talked about her a little bit when we did the Magdalene Laundrie's show, because she was actually in one of those when she was a kid. But we just thought about her the other day because they played a couple songs of hers at the club we were at. But I don't know. It would be weird. I don't usually leave the house much anyway, so it probably wouldn't make much difference. It would just be more people sending me messages online and stuff like that. Yeah. That's all. But yeah, so this conspiracy theory here, I had never heard this one before, but it's kind of like the opposite of the Paul is dead one. This person, his name is Chris Fischel, I guess is how you pronounce his last name, not really sure. And he came up with this theory that Paul McCartney is actually the only Beatle that's still alive. Like, all the other ones died a long time ago. Now, Paul McCartney is still alive, obviously, as is Ringo Starr, as of this live stream. But he's saying that all of them died a long time ago, like in the 60s, and that Paul McCartney is the only one that's still alive. Like I said, it's kind of the opposite of the Paul is dead theory. And he has, weirdly, a bunch of other kind of album cover adjacent kind of clues, like, saying about it. So his whole thing, he says that Ringo Starr died in 1963. Like I said, not true. Ringo Starr is actually still alive. And that George Harrison died in 1964. Also not true. George Harrison actually died in 2001, I think. And then John Lennon in 1965, I think is what he says.
George Harrison had some good singles, too.
He did. I liked a lot of George Harrison's solo stuff, actually. Like I said, I liked a lot of Paul McCartney's and Wings stuff, too. But yeah. Ringo Starr's solo stuff was okay. Poor Ringo. He always gets shit on. You know what I mean? I liked Octopus's Garden, okay? It's like, you know what I mean? But a lot of his solo stuff, it wasn't as good. It wasn't quite as good as all the other ones. We love you, Ringo. It's like, you know what I mean? But yeah. So, in this whole article that this guy wrote, and I don't know if this guy was just, like, trolling and he just thought it would be funny to do, like, a Beatles conspiracy that was, like, the opposite of the very famous Paul is dead conspiracy. He's like, no, actually, Paul is the only one that's still alive. All the other ones died a long time ago. You know what I mean? And all of his evidence comes from shit like the cover of With the Beatles, and he says Ringo, the picture of Ringo, like his face, is like out of line with the other faces. And so that's obviously a clue that he died, right? Like or that Ringo is like a different Ringo than the one. Because I think in this theory, he's also saying that they were all replaced with lookalikes. Much like the Paul is dead theory, where he was replaced with lookalike. I was like, is this like Menudo, or were they all? They didn't try to pretend they were all the same people, right? They just kind of said, once you're 16, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting a new younger one.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
He had a shelf life in Menudo.
Yeah. It was like Logan's Run, except you were only you go through renewal like at 16. You know what I mean? You go through the thing and you blow up, and it's this whole thing. But but yeah. Hopefully, like, so younger people watching the show, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, go watch Logan's Run. You'll know what I'm talking about. All right, so, and then also, 1964, on the cover of A Hard Day's Night, which I actually do remember, George Harrison has his back to the camera, and he has a cigarette, a.k.a. a coffin nail, meaning that he died in 1964.
They all died.
Yeah, they're all dead. Then, 1966, when Revolver came out, John Lennon sings a song called I'm Only Sleeping, which supposedly means that he's dead.
He's
because
dead,
sleep and dead, you know what I mean? There's that whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, what he says, so he says that, the whole Paul is dead theory says that, at the end of Strawberry Fields Forever, where John Lennon sings what sounds like, not to me, but like I Buried Paul, he says, yeah, that sounds like, Paul McCartney's the one that died. But he's like, I will note that in Strawberry Fields Forever, like before that, he sings Nothing is Real. Like he's saying that it's like everything I say after this is like a lie, I guess. Like I said, I don't understand these Olympic levels of like fucking stretching and reaching to get to the... This guy, I think, is maybe trolling. I'm not entirely sure. It's hard to tell.
They're listening to the albums and they're listening to the album, looking at the covers for fucking hours at a time in their fucking bedrooms, making up all these fucking stories, and listening to the lyrics, drawing comparisons like it's a big puzzle. So it's a big conspiracy.
Like, look, I like puzzles and mysteries as much as the next person. Okay, like that's a pretty natural human thing to like. But
that's not what they're doing, though.
No, I think this is a whole other thing.
Yeah, they know. I think the Beatles knew people were doing that, but they were just laughing at that. Fuck it, let's just make.
Well, if it was me, like if I was as famous as the fucking Beatles,
probably playing into it
and was putting records out, and like people were coming up with all these fucking crazy ass theories, I'd be like, oh man, I'm leaning into that shit. I would put out all kind of crazy shit.
Yeah,
it wouldn't mean anything.
No,
but I would just like think it was funny that people would like assign meaning to like all of this kind of crap, and I'm sure that a lot of musicians would probably do that because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Come on, that would be super funny.
Most guys, when they're writing a song, it's something personal between friends, and then they're referring to things that somebody on the other side of the room would understand. Yeah. You don't understand it
because you weren't there.
There.
He's talking about some like a personal thing that happened.
Good example. Steve Morrissey, fucking.
Otherwise known as just
Morrissey.
He does have a first name. It's Stephen. Stephen Patrick Morrissey.
Is a lyrical.
And I'm not joking. That's actually his name.
A master lyricist. Okay. And he can fucking write lyrics that make sense to everybody. Fucking, he'd get dudes to simp on him and shit. Like, man, I feel that way too. The thing is he's not fucking talking to you. He's talking to his friends.
Yeah.
But that's why
he's talking about particular situations,
talking about particular friends that he knows,
and particular people that he knows.
Right, and the reason why you can relate to it is because it's real common shit. Everybody kind of feels this shit.
And like I said, I think that's I think that maybe is what is causing the problem is that a great artist will use personal things, your own relationships, your own feelings, your own experiences. And will do something like that, and it resonates with a lot of people who think that you're talking about them, like about their experience. You're not. You're talking about, but because humans are, largely more or less the same everywhere, like people are gonna read their own shit into that. Yeah. And be like, they're talking about me. Oh my God, they know what I'm talking about. They know me. They know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Not really. They're talking about, like I said, a buddy that they knew or a situation that they were in.
Hairdresser on fire.
Or something. Yeah, they're just talking about something that they did.
It's his gay fucking barber that
he's just talking about a specific
cuts his hair and makes him feel better. He cuts his hair and you can tell him all his problems.
And like I said, the fact that a lot of people can relate to what he was talking about that just kind of goes to show that, like, the universality of, like, the human experience is you can take something very personal. It's just like, well, you know, I wrote a song about this conversation I had with my friend or my boyfriend or whatever, and it's like everybody related to it, like it was something that happened to them. But it's
this
like
chick
not
that
really.
I want to fuck, but I'm in the friend zone, keeps calling me complaining about some other dude. There's all kinds of. He's got all those kind of lyrics, you know. Fucking that was all fucking. Oh shit! Fucking. Man, it was one. What was the album that had R. Frank on it?
Oh fuck, man! Why are you asking me this kind of shit? I don't remember. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Your Arsenal? Was it Your Arsenal?
Your Arsenal. No, it isn't.
Okay.
Are frank and open, deep conversations. They get me nowhere. They just bring me down so. And he's talking about fucking. No, that was not that one. I got that song confused. Motherfucker's a master. I'm too drunk to talk about
Yeah,
more.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And fucking people are like, dude, man, I thought you like metal. I like, I have a very, I like metal. I like fucking goth, but goths in general, fucking love Morrissey.
Generally, they do.
Yeah.
We know one person at least.
Fucking Toby, Toby, my leather daddy. Buddy, can't
Toby
stand him.
And Dr. Michael.
They can't stand Morrissey. They
Hate Morrissey.
because they think he's a bitch. That he's too.
He is a bitch.
Yeah, and
I will give it.
He's
him
a
that.
bitch. But
he is a bitch.
That was Morrissey's.
That's kind of part of his charm.
That was
though.
his superpower.
He is a raging bitch.
Yeah.
He always has been. He always has been.
But he was fucking funny.
Well, like I said, because he was so witty, he was like, you know, he idolized Oscar Wilde, and Oscar Wilde was also a master of like being super bitchy, but like doing it in like a funny way where you would just like fucking die laughing at like the fucking cutting insults and shit like that, and he's kind of like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the thing. But like I said, I kind of feel like the whole. In some ways, too, I don't know if this is true across the board, because I was just thinking that, you know, the Beatles, a lot of their early stuff, some of it was covers, like Twist and Shout, and, you know, some of it was just kind of pretty standard, like, pop songs, like love songs and stuff like that, which obviously, you know, everybody can kind of relate to those. But then when they kind of got experimental later on, and their lyrics got a lot more abstract, in some ways, I think that fueled a lot of the conspiracy theories, because if your lyrics are real abstract like that, you can kind of read whatever you want to read into it, right? So it's just kind of like, you know, I mean, you write a song like I said, like Glass Onion or like something like that, and it's just like on the surface of it, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but then when you read through it, you can kind of, it's like a poem, you know what I mean? You're kind of going to bring your own experience to it, which is kind of the cool thing about art in general. But as I said, I think that also kind of fuels a lot of this sort of conspiracy theories where, like shit like this, where now people are studying pictures and album covers and lyrics and all this other stuff and trying to say, it's like, well, they're trying to send us secret messages. Like I said, that's a whole other... It's fine to, like, get into people's music and be interested in it and just be like, hey, I wonder what they meant by that. It's like, what was the story behind that song or something like that? That's cool. But it's just kind of like when you're constructing entire things, like they're trying to tell you something, like I said, like Charles Manson was doing, then obviously that's not great. I mean, that's not something that mentally healthy people generally do.
We're talking about the music industry. The funny thing about Charles Manson is that one of the members of the Beach Boys knew Charles Manson, heard him play, and said he was great. Said he could.
I have heard that. Yeah, I gotta pee.
What was he? He was at some party, wasn't he?
Well, yeah. Well, he wasn't he before he did the the murdering. Well, he was in with was it Brian Wilson? One of the Beach Boys.
From the Beach Boys. Yeah. They were hanging out and going to parties and stuff at people's houses, and he said Charles Manson was pretty cool. Everybody liked him, and he was playing music. I don't remember if it was guitar or keyboard, and then singing. And he said it was very different But I remember him saying in one of the interviews, he's like, but he really had something there. He could have really been something. It's kind of strange when you think about it. We've done some shows on Manson. There's some weird shit about some weird theories about Manson. Like there's some connection between Manson and some of the CIA's fucking secret experiments that was going on. What do they call it? What was the name of that fucking project that they had? MK Ultra, where the CIA was trying to do mind control. They were doing experiments on college students and just people who, not just college, just anybody. They recruit them in different ways, and they pay them to go through these experiments on, give them LSD, shit like that. And it was in the end a mind control experiment. They were trying. They thought that if they could run the human mind, that would be a power greater than atomic power, which it is. Propaganda, mind control, using psychology, advertising campaigns and stuff. But yeah, that was kind of a weird thing about Manson, is that guy from the Beach Boys said that he was good. Weird.
Yeah, it's not that weird. It's like there's a lot of talented people. It's like, just because you're talented doesn't mean you can't also be a psycho.
Yeah, he was a fucking psycho.
You know what I mean?
And then it comes back around again. A band that we like, goth industrial band called Skinny Puppy, samples fucking Charles Manson singing Helter Skelter.
Yeah,
because he actually sings Helter Skelter in an interview. They took that and lifted it and they put it into a Skinny Puppy song.
That's
good. Yeah,
that's a great fucking song.
Yeah,
not that Charles Manson did it, but when it was a Beatles song, it was a great song.
Well, it's a great Skinny Puppy song with Charles Manson singing fucking Helter Skelter in it. What was the name of that song? Remember?
I don't remember offhand, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's fucking funny. It's fucking funny that he built this entire edifice of craziness.
Yeah.
Pretty much on the White Album, on the back of the White Album.
Yeah.
He thought, well, and I know that the White Album isn't technically officially called the White Album. It's just called the Beatles, but everybody calls it the White Album because it's all white.
Yeah, Metallica had the Black Album, just called Metallica.
Yeah.
They did their
they did the same fucking shit. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I'm just saying, it's like, I'm not a conspiratorial mindset kind of person. Yes, there are small conspiracies, I get that. But it's just kind of like these ones where people are just pulling them out of their ass or like pulling them out of thin air, and trying to make all these connections that aren't there. I get why people do it. Human brains are kind of hardwired to find patterns. That's just how we evolved. But it gives you a lot of false positives. It shows you like fucking patterns that are not there. And if you want to find a pattern, you will absolutely find one, down to like cherry picking stuff that fits in and then forgetting everything that doesn't fit into it. You know what I mean? And you see that's very, very common. So this whole thing about, I don't know, like I said, I think this guy might be trolling. I think he is just kind of like, because the Paul is dead thing was so famous, he's just kind of like, I'm just going to do the opposite of that, where I'm going to say they're all dead except Paul McCartney, and that they died like a long time ago, and because like they weren't like in the right position on the album cover, like their back was turned or something like that. So that means they're trying to signal to us, that they actually died. Why would anybody do that if they were trying to keep a secret? I don't know. That's kind of another thing that I don't like about a lot of conspiracy theories, is that especially the ones that say that there's like secret codes or secret messages and stuff. And I'm just like, look, if nobody wanted you to know that, why would they encode it so somebody could figure it out?
Why would they put it in an album?
Yeah, like why would they do that? It's just, like I said, think about the end goal. What is the end goal? Did they want anybody to find out about it? No. Then they wouldn't do that. Duh, obviously. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, that always seemed really dumb to me. Now this, going back to what we were talking about, Menudo. There's also a conspiracy theory that the Beatles are, and this is almost kind of like a little bit adjacent to another topic that I've wanted to do a show about, is the whole Shakespeare conspiracy, as in Shakespeare wasn't really the guy that wrote all those plays. And that it was a bunch of other people like just under that name. And there's also a conspiracy theory that the Beatles are similar, that there was actually no band. I mean, there was a band called Beatles, but it wasn't like the same four guys. Like, it was always different actors over the years playing those four characters, and that they just kept putting out albums. Like I said, kind of like Menudo, but as far as I know, like, Menudo didn't try to pretend that all the people were the same people. It was like, we just replaced him with somebody that doesn't look anything like him and are calling him the same name. So it's like, so they didn't do that. But this kind of theory, they're kind of pointing out, it's like, look at, like, they're kind of like showing pictures over the years of like, look at like Ringo's like shorter in this picture and he's taller in this picture, and like their eyebrows are different and like all this other kind of stuff. So I don't know, that, like, this kind of shit to me, it's almost kind of like those stupid, like, nowadays, like the stupid like transvestigation fucking channels and all that kind of crap. It's just kind of like, these people have entirely too much fucking time on their hands. They need to find a productive hobby instead of just like staring at photos of famous people and thinking that they're not like the same person, or it's really a man or something like that. Hey, that's another Beatles conspiracy theory we saw. They were actually all women. I'm going to start that one right now.
Yeah, they're all women.
Somebody picked that up.
They're all in drag.
Yeah. That's my new conspiracy theory. I'm sure somebody will pick that up and run with it. You know what I mean? Because that sounds like that's like tailor-made for like shit nowadays. Thank you very much, Klaus. Gave us another super chat.
Oh, Klaus, appreciate it, bro.
Thank you very much. That's very nice of you. Very nice of you. Oh, Heider said R.I.P. Jane Goodall. Did she die? Holy
Jane
crap,
Goodall died?
Jane. Oh,
Okay.
Man. I always thought she was so fucking cool.
Well, she lived a full life, though.
She did, though.
She'd been old by
yeah.
now.
Yeah, she was quite
She'd
old.
have been in her fucking, 80s by now?
Yeah, I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen her, but I read a couple of her books and shit like that. Like, yeah, she's a cool ass chick. But yeah. So there's a whole thing about they were played by different characters over the years. Now, here's another one. This one's kind of fun. You should probably have fun with this one. I don't know if you've ever heard this one before, but the theory says that the Beatles were actually a creation. Like, they weren't just like four guys from the UK that decided to form a band, as people do. They were actually formed by the Illuminati.
Oh, yeah, of course.
In order to get young people on drugs. I mean,
Illuminati fucking conspiracies, yeah.
We did a whole fucking show about
Masonic conspiracy, yeah.
Oh my god, so silly.
Yeah. The Illuminati were not a fucking satanic cult. That's
Nah,
they were
they're just-
Christian. But they were Christian, probably mythicists.
Jane Goodall was 91, they said.
91 were good.
Good for her.
And the reason why they were secret is because they were actually talking about democracies and bringing back democracies and democratic republics, because they lived in monarchies.
Yeah.
You couldn't say that, you get killed. So that's why their secret societies had nothing to do with Satan.
Yeah, they were just afraid they'd get...
Yeah.
They would get executed.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, and you could be of any religious background. They were mostly Christians.
They were pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, but you could be a Muslim too. They had Muslims in there, but they were secularists, I guess you could say, in a way.
Yeah. So like I said, fucking more power to them.
Yeah, they were good organizations, and America would not have been formed without them.
Nope.
Because they helped the revolution, and even pre-revolutionary, they were involved in piracy and everything to bring shit in. The pirates were democratic, of all things. They would vote and share fucking. They would crowdsource and shit, share the booty is what they called it. With the shit that they stole.
Probably
they were
wise.
Contractors. Yeah.
Probably wise to do that.
Yeah, and pirate captains were elected. So
Also probably wise to do that. You're out on a ship for months at a time with a bunch of dudes. Everybody better be fucking chill.
Yeah.
Or shit's gonna pop off.
They also had women on the crew, which is something that imperial ships couldn't have. And they died. A lot of them died by the fuck. And they were the enemies of humanity. They weren't good just because they believed that.
Yeah.
They raped people. They fucking killed people.
Yeah, that's just
sold
because they
people
had
into
some
slavery.
cool ideals doesn't mean they were awesome people.
They weren't awesome. They sold
were
people into slavery. They did all kinds of shit. Okay.
People are complicated.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
But the Washington D.C. is laid out all in fucking Masonic orders of fucking. There's pentagrams, pentacles, pyramids. All kinds of, but you have to understand the Masonic orders and their way of thinking, which was, it's mystical. It's mystical,
that's all.
and it has very much a lot to do with geometry, because in the olden days, geometry was like was
was a high-tech experimental science, and they were trying to unlock the mysteries of the universe using geometry.
Yeah.
Which that's alien to the modern mind. But they thought maybe through geometry you could figure out God and the universe.
And like I said, nothing nefarious about it.
No.
They were just kind of...
Yeah. They hadn't even discovered chemistry yet.
Yeah.
But they had mathematics and geometry.
Zach says, did you guys also hear the theory that John was bi and banged their manager and Paul? I think I heard that a long time ago. To me, that doesn't sound... I don't even know if that's a conspiracy theory per se.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if that had happened. I'm not saying that it did, or that it bothers me one way or the other. I mean, that seems like something that could have happened in the era and stuff. But
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if half
have.
of those dudes did shit like that. Because
Yeah,
they were trying to break societal norms.
Sure.
And during this same time, you had David Bowie and Mick Jagger sharing the same girlfriend and all getting it on. Okay,
That's how the story goes.
And yeah, that was
Which
happening.
I can see that happening.
And
Big time.
You know, fucking Mick Jagger. The song is Angie, Angie. He's talking about Angela Bowie. He's talking about David Bowie's wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody knows that.
But they were all friends. Let's put it that way. They were in a. But here's another thing that you got to factor into that. They let that out. They let that information out into the public because sensationalism sold fucking records.
Of course.
And
because, like I said, the more people pearl clutch, what it's called nowadays, they call it the Streisand effect. The more
Right.
people like freak out and pearl clutch about something, the more, especially back in those days, like the teenagers or whatever, will be like, "Oh, I'm gonna find out what this is. I'm gonna buy that shit."
and David Bowie, he invented the concept of LARPing, live action role play. Every album, he was a different character. He wanted to be an actor, and he became an actor. He was a good actor.
He's a good actor, actually.
And so
was in a lot
every
of
album was a concept album, and he was kind of LARPing a new character. You know what I mean? Fucking the Thin White Duke or Ziggy Stardust, or he was a different character on every album. So you never knew what you were going to get with Bowie. A huge fan of Bowie. He's great.
I know.
And Bowie was an artificial homosexual. Okay. Some of his characters were LARPing as a homosexual guy or trans or cross-dresser. And some of them, in the Thin White Duke, he's a fascist. He's a European fascist. He called himself that, who snorts cocaine. But he was cool. He would just do anything.
Yeah, it was just it was almost like a live action novel.
Like
he was just a character that he was
a
playing.
character. And
he was into that.
many have said David Bowie was the richest man in music. Definitely. But he didn't make it in music. He made all his money in real estate and art deals. And art deals...
Paul McCartney did a similar thing.
Yeah. And the art deal is always kind of like a euphemism for laundering money. Okay, so he was really good at that kind of shit. And in his early days of his career, one of the reasons why he became famous is because he had powerful men behind him that enjoyed his work. Now, I'm not, it was never really spelled out, but I could read in between the lines. There were rich gay guys that fucking loved him and his work and thought that fucking he was a good representation of their value system and what they liked. So they helped fund a lot of his fucking endeavors. Helped fund albums and tours and shit like that. And they made money back on him. Bowie was an extremely good businessman and a real good showman. And he was not a musician. He was an entertainer. And he would tell you that. He could play instruments. He could sing. But that's not what he was into. He liked to entertain.
Well, he was kind of like a whole...
He would do everything, yeah.
He likes the whole picture.
Yeah. So he'd put on a show. He could be a movie star. He could put on a musical show about being a movie star. He'd make a movie. He'd make music videos. He could be all these different characters, and fucking that inspired Marilyn Manson. Really, Marilyn Manson tried to do that, but not successfully.
I mean,
Bowie
Marilyn Manson kind of ripped off everything.
He ripped off a lot of shit, but he only ripped off certain aspects of David Bowie.
Nine Inch Nails.
David Bowie had
Skinny
a
Puppy.
broad spectrum because he had fuck you money. He could make an album, and that album could fail, and it wouldn't matter to him because he was making his money real estate.
Yeah.
That motherfucker owns mansions on islands out in Borneo.
Yeah, he's probably like,
and he had friends.
y'all can say whatever you want about
Yeah.
my shoes and my outfits and shit like
Yeah,
that, but
he had
I
friends
could
that
buy and sell your asses.
he had friends that fucking ran Better Homes and Garden magazines who would do layouts on all the fucking homes that he owned and was trying to sell.
He was a cool ass dude.
Yeah,
actually.
he was
Just all
a
around.
gangster.
He was a cool ass dude.
Yeah, he was a gangster.
John Gore said, doesn't John Travolta call Bowie the F slur in Saturday Night Fever ironic now?
Yeah.
I think he does.
Yeah.
Did we review that movie on the
You
show?
got a
I remember watching it not too long
You got
ago.
a fake heterosexual calling a fake homosexual a fag. Yeah. Fucking funny, man.
John Travolta.
John Travolta's gay as shit.
He's for sure gay.
Gay as shit, yeah.
I mean, I know, not firsthand, I know secondhand. Because my aunt
Yeah.
used to run a spa in Port Orange where John Travolta had a hangar there, and I think he had a house there, but he kept his planes and stuff. Like, everybody knew where it was. And he used to come into her spa all the time and get facials and whatnot. So she knew him. And her and all the people that worked there were like, oh yeah, he's totally gay. You know what I mean? Which, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that because he's a Scientologist, Scientology, which, you know, I have a whole history with that. I'm not a fan. You know what I mean? They are very, very homophobic, very anti-gay, which, you know, not great. And so if you have those proclivities, they will get all of that out of you, and then they'll blackmail you to keep it under wraps. And I think that is probably what happened to him. I wish he would get the fuck out of there. I wish the same of Tom Cruise. I just wish everybody that's in it, and I know that some people were born in it, and maybe they don't know any different, because I worked with several people that were born into it and were just schooled in Scientology schools, and they didn't know any better. I feel sorry for those people. People that joined it later, I don't feel sorry for them because you knew what you were getting into probably. But yeah, it's not a great. It's not great. It's a cult. Please get out. So, you know what I mean? That's all I'm going to say about it, because I've talked a lot about it on this show. I used to work at a company that was owned by. If you guys know about the Lisa McPherson case, please look it up. Happened in Clearwater, only probably about an hour from here. I worked with the woman that was her roommate, and also several people that testified at the trial, like after she died. So I'm a little salty about it, because I worked around them and they pissed me the fuck off. Because I lived in Clearwater for a little while. I do not like Scientologists at all. So yeah. But, you know, we've gotten off track again, as we do.
It's a show, and that's why they're here. They
It's a
love
show.
this. It's a show.
How did we get off on this? Okay. So
Talking about music.
So the Beatles, evidently, according to this theory, were formed by the Illuminati, specifically the Committee of 300, which is another thing that conspiracy theorists like to bring up, and the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations. And that they were there to basically brainwash all the teenagers in the world, or the Western world, I suppose, to get into drugs. And, like, just, I don't know what their end goal was exactly, other than getting them into drugs and, like, being able to mind control them, I'm assuming, I guess. And, like, they would just do whatever they told them to do. Now, the Committee of 300, there's kind of a thing behind that. This was, I don't even know if this is a real thing. It's something that kind of comes up in slightly more obscure, I guess, conspiracy circles. But it was allegedly founded by the British aristocracy in the 18th century. And this is a group that supposedly wants to control, like, culture, like society at large, just through politics, pop culture, whatever the fuck. Now, the Tavistock Institute does exist. It's a British charity. It was actually founded back in the 40s. But for whatever reason, conspiracy theorists have latched onto it as it's some kind of Illuminati funded thing that is trying to mind control people. Like, I'm not really sure why they latched onto that particularly. So this theory posits that the Beatles were formed by these two groups as this plot to kind of make... And this theory also posits that the words, like, or the concepts of teenager and pop music and something being cool didn't really exist before the Illuminati, through these two groups, like, introduced it through the Beatles. Which I'd have to look up specifically, like, where that came from, but I'm pretty sure that's bullshit. I'm 99.99% sure that's bullshit.
100%.
I mean, come
bullshit.
on now. Like, because teenager, I get that the concept of teenager as a distinct
That didn't happen till
cultural
later.
thing, that was like the 50s.
50s.
Whereas, like, because I kind of feel like before that, just because of culture at large, you kind of grew up in a family and it's just kind of like everyone just kind of listened to the same music or did the same kind of shit. You know what I mean? There wasn't like this big gap between like the parents and the...
It wasn't culture gaps.
It wasn't like a big culture gap. Like probably until the 50s.
Yeah.
Maybe earlier, but I kind of feel like that's when
In the 1800s, there
was
was,
most
there was
distinct.
no distinction between a child and an adult.
Mm.
It was just wild. No concept of a childhood.
Yeah, and so I get that. So I kind of feel like the idea that there's a whole separate teenage culture. They have their own music and their own slang and their own, like, that was kind of a more modern concept. Yeah. So I get that somebody could take that idea and say, oh, the Illuminati came up with that and the Beatles was the vehicle. It's not true. Obviously, it's stupid, but I could get why people might buy it if they didn't really look into it too hard. You know what I mean? But yeah, so they're positing that the Beatles were, like, created for that exact purpose. Like I said, I'm not really sure what the end game was, other than getting teenagers to do drugs and not do what their parents told them. Maybe. I don't know. Like, they wanted to cause some kind of cultural rift, perhaps, for purposes which are not real well delineated. I'm not, like I said, that's what a lot of these conspiracy theories, I don't really get what the end game is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, they're like, well, this and that and the other. I'm like, yeah, but who benefits from that? Yeah. Like, what's the goal of that?
It sounds like bullshit. Cause the things that did exist was MK Ultra. MK Ultra was,
now that did exist.
They were trying. They want to know the limits of the human mind, and could you achieve mind control? Could you make a Manchurian candidate? In other words, brainwash a person to be an assassin, and they don't know it.
And they don't know that they're being
until you activate them, and then they do. They wanted to know shit like that. Could you? And then it was also things like, could you use LSD as a weapon?
That didn't go so well.
Yeah. Well, they tried. Didn't
that dude fall out the window or jump out the window?
No, they threw him out the window. I think they threw him out the window.
There was that.
Yeah, LSD. Well, they were talking about shooting LSD in an aerosol out of, say, like helicopters or croc dusters onto enemy troops. Could you get them to surrender? That's what they were. Because you see, LSD doesn't have an overdose point, so it's not like hitting them with a bunch of fucking gaseous morphine that could kill them. Okay, like sleeping gas doesn't work. Dispensed from a train, from an airplane. It's too dose sensitive. It either kills you or it doesn't work. LSD doesn't have an overdose point. You could just get somebody so fucking high they'll just fucking sit there.
Yeah, they don't know.
And they'll just be out of their fucking mind. What happens? Can you go capture them? You know, they actually made a horror movie about that, Butterfly Effect. Remember that? Supposedly they did test it on U.S. troops in Vietnam. That's just a rumor, though. I don't know if it's true.
I'm pretty sure they probably did.
Probably.
They were looking into that.
They did test it on soldiers at at military bases and had them go through obstacle courses. So they were just they got it on film. They're just fucking jacked out of their mind looking at a big obstacle Can you climb that? He's like, oh, because it looked huge, you know, to the guy, you know.
It's weird. Like, you know,
yeah.
I've taken LSD, but like the worst thing that happened with that was like, I'm a werewolf. I'm gonna go roll around in the grass.
Yeah, but
That was about it. And like most of the time, I was like completely cogent.
Yeah, that was a modern dose, though.
That's true.
1960s
Might have been a lot
doses were
stronger
about
back
like
then.
5 times that.
So they might have been totally off their faces.
Yeah, and they didn't know how much you actually needed. Some of that shit that was going around in the 60s was
So
like
just give them that much.
10 times more powerful than what
We'll see
you
what
really needed.
happens.
And if
I
you
could
were-
see you getting so much LSD that you thought that you were Superman and you could fly and you would
Yeah,
jump out a window.
yeah.
I could see that happening.
Well, if you're spraying
Probably
it-
not with modern shit, but
if you're spraying it out of a crop duster or you're spraying it out of an explosive like artillery shell, it's going to range from between like 1 hit or a half a hit of what you had up to 100 hits, depending on fucking where you were sitting, how much concentration you got of it. You know what I mean? And with LSD, you won't have an overdose point where you die, but you'd be so fried you'd probably just be laying there in comatose state, fucking kaleidoscope, you know, fucking.
yeah,
be
you're just like
that.
so fucking out of it. that you
Right.
don't know what's
Which
going
that could be a good non-lethal weapon. You could go and scoop that dude up. Probably wouldn't give you much trouble.
on. Yeah, I mean, but it's kind of a whole different question whether you could actually like subvert their personality so much that you could get them to do
That's
things
different, yeah.
that they wouldn't normally do,
MK
which I think is much harder than you.
MK Ultra
Would
was
imagine.
also, there was also involved mind wiping,
Yeah,
and there had some doctor up in
I don't think
Canada.
that didn't work out so good either.
I think it did work. They were taking people and fucking giving them so much LSD and then giving them subliminal messages in the dark, sensory deprivation for about six months at a time. And that woman came out of that shit. She was infantile, and she was like raising an infant to bring her back. And when she came back, she was a totally different person.
Well, like I said, I could see.
And she was in there for depression.
I could see
Fucking-
like prolonged kind of shit. Like yeah,
Yeah.
that would fuck you up. After
It was a mind wipe. Yeah,
I
they
can
want
see
to
that
know
would fuck you
because
up.
you see, it's a lot easier killing somebody leaves a trail, and you're now guilty of murder, and that might be what might be better is to just mind wipe that person, and when they're done, they can't testify, they can't really tell, they don't even really know what happened. There was a serial killer that was doing that, and it kind of worked. Remember that one we did a show on him. I think it was out in Arizona. He was mind wiping them with a bunch of fucking LSD and making them listen to those recordings over and over again for like weeks at a time. And then he let them go. And they didn't know where they were.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, you can be fucked up like that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, human brain's complicated. Anyways, where was I? Okay, so Granther said 60s Brit youth culture was actually called the mods. Well, they weren't all. Like, there was the mods and there was also the rockers. And they were bitter enemies. They would always have like fights with each other.
Yeah, we didn't have those in the United
See
States.
Quadrophenia.
Yeah, we didn't have those in the U.S.
the documentary Quadrophenia.
Yeah.
Not really. It's a movie, but you know what I mean. It's a
We
good movie.
didn't have
actually.
those subcultures.
Yeah, but it's like
That was
yeah.
England.
I mean, I guess
had
it was
hoods.
I guess it was kind of a similar thing because you kind of
Hoods
had
and
like
jocks and
they're talking about like back in the 60s.
greasers.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of like greasers.
Greasers were like our version of
versus
rockers.
like hippies.
Yeah.
Well, no, mods weren't really hippies though.
No,
That
that's not
wasn't
what
really.
I said.
No, I was saying.
Yeah, mods were not hippies.
What I was saying
Yeah.
was that I was trying to think of like an equivalent of like
To a
two
mod?
youth cultures that were, set against one another is what I was trying to come up with. And I was just kind of like, so it might be something like.
We didn't have mods.
Not
in the
really.
US.
We didn't really have the same. It wasn't really the same thing.
If you if you were to show an American a British mod in that era, they just would have thought that was just a regular person. That was like Barbara Eden dressed that way in the '60s, and just like a cool chick, be like that. But they didn't really have it. It wasn't really a subculture. It was kind of mainstream, I think, for that age group. Now, greasers were kind of like rockers.
Yeah, because they were
Rockers
like
were motorcycle
They were
guys.
into like rockabilly. They liked
Yeah.
to ride motorcycles. They
Yeah.
like fucking
Greasers
Elvis-y hair.
Greasers were kind of like mods, but they weren't worried about motorcycles. They were worried about
Like
cars.
the T-Birds.
Yeah,
from
they were about
Grease.
cars, hot rods.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Like if you want kind of a movie equivalent, that's kind of what that was.
Yeah, those were greasers,
Yeah.
and they were more of a car culture.
Yeah. like a hot rod kind of thing.
Yeah, in England during that time, I don't think the average poor kid in high school and in his early teens and early 20s couldn't get their hands on a car. They could get their hands on a motorcycle, but not a car. In the U.S., car was cheap at that time. $100 you can get an old car and turn that into a hot rod. $100 of the old money back then. That's old hot rods were cars pre-war that they'd stripped out. 40s cars.
So the whole thing about the Illuminati forming the Beatles, I've heard various places on the internet that this is called the Aquarian Conspiracy. However, I will note that the Aquarian Conspiracy idea, that name, as far as I'm aware, actually comes from a book by an author named Marilyn Ferguson that came out in 1980. And that book, as far as I know, doesn't really have anything to do with the Beatles. It's more of like a new age. It's kind of a positive thing, where they're kind of talking about paradigm shifts and transformation in human consciousness, that kind of stuff, which I guess is sort of what they're getting at, but they're kind of painting it in a negative light.
My high school boy, fucking Grampers, is correcting me. That wasn't Butterfly Effect. That was Jacob's Ladder, the movie about what they were doing at LSD.
I know.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah,
you didn't correct me.
Well, I thought I'd get yelled at.
No. Jacob's Ladder. That's right.
You know what I mean?
When you get yelled at.
I'm sitting there like, Butterfly, what are you talking about?
That was called Butterfly Effect.
No,
it was called
that's
Jacob's Ladder.
a totally different movie.
Different movie, yeah.
That's a totally different movie.
Jacob's Ladder.
That came out much later.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jacob's Ladder is like...
Jacob's Ladder. Yeah, that's the one about the fucking...
That was
LSD,
from the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Tim Robbins. I think we reviewed that not too long ago. All right, so where was I? Okay, so I'm not really sure where the guy that came up with the whole Illuminati Beatles conspiracy theory. I think he might have used to been in the CIA, but I don't know if that's true or not. And I don't know if he just took that name from that novel, because like I said, the book that came out seemed like it was trying to say like it was a positive thing, like it's this whole paradigm shift, we're all one and blah blah blah, like it was like a new agey kind of shit, but like in a positive way. And I think that he took that name and tried to make it into a negative thing, like, oh no, the Illuminati are behind all of this and they're making everything shady. I'm not really sure like why he took that name specifically, but because when I looked it up, because when I was looking at shit about Beatles conspiracies and they were saying, oh, this is called the Aquarian Conspiracy, and then I looked that up, and then I found this book, and I went down this big rabbit hole and stuff like that. I'm like, she's not talking about the Beatles, man. She's talking about like something good, like the Age of Aquarius is what she's talking about. Just like that fucking song, you know what I mean? So I don't know, but I don't know. Like I said before, all the Illuminati shit, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. It's just kind of like I don't believe in any of that crap. Now here's kind of one that's kind of funny, also kind of closer to home. I had never heard this one either. But there is evidently a long-time conspiracy theory that the Beatles allegedly conspired to kill their original drummer, Pete Best, before Ringo Starr came into the picture. Now, I've never seen any conspiracy that they actually did kill him, but that they were thinking about killing him. And this is kind of hilarious. I had actually never heard this one. So, the evidence for this one comes from this writer named something Gunblade or something like that. And he says that that there was this unpublished George Harrison autobiography where a lot of this information was allegedly revealed, which, like I said, right away, like, pings my radar. Like, come on. But according to this story, the Beatles were hanging out at this place called The Grapes, which was where the place they hung out a lot, like a pub kind of thing in Liverpool. And there's all these witnesses that say they overheard conversations, like Pete Best, who was their drummer at the time, like I said, that was like the original Beatles drummer, and he went out to pee like in the alley or something like that. And all the rest of the guys were talking about how much he sucked, and they wanted him out of the band. and they're talking about how they don't like his hair, and he's the one getting all the chicks, and you know what I mean? It's like they want to get rid of him. So there's this whole like conversation, allegedly. And then there's supposedly like all these witness statements of all these people that heard the other Beatles like conspiring. We need to get him out of the band somehow. And I think that evolved into, we're going to kill him. So the story goes, this is so funny to me. I know where they got this idea too. And some of y'all might know when I say. So the story goes that at the end of May 1962, they had asked Pete Best to cut his hair in the way that because they were going for a whole aesthetic, y'all. So it's just kind of like, you have to cut your hair like we cut it. And he wouldn't do it because he was kind of more, you know, the rockabilly kind of look, right? He didn't want to do it. And so they were mad. And so apparently the other guys rigged his drum kit to explode during the final show that they were doing in Hamburg, Germany. This is from Spinal Tap, you guys, right? Like the exploding drummer, that's Spinal Tap. So I'm not sure if the person that wrote this like got the idea from Spinal Tap, or Spinal Tap got the idea from this. I'm not really sure. But that's how the story goes, that they were going to blow him up like at their final gig so they could get a new drummer instead of just firing him, which obviously would have been the easier thing to do because he wouldn't cut his fucking hair. So story goes that they rigged his drum kit with explosives, but it didn't go off because they didn't do it right. And while Pete is like packing his drum kit up, he like finds it and somehow recognizes that it's a bomb, I guess. And so then he's like, what the fuck? Y'all like put a bomb in my drum kit, as you would, you know what I mean? And apparently, allegedly, John Lennon is kind of like, that ought to show you. Like, you should have cut your hair like we wanted. By the way, you're fired. And then shortly after that, they got Ringo Starr, and the rest is history.
Get you another drink.
So yeah, I kind of love that story. Like I said, I don't know if Spinal Tap got the idea from that. Because I don't know how long that rumor... I'd never heard that theory before. So I don't know how long that's been circulating. So it's very possible that Spinal Tap could have got the idea from that. Or the other way around. But it's like, that's very, very funny to me. It's like instead of just saying, hey, you're fired, we want another different drummer. We're gonna like fucking rig your drums to blow up. And then it doesn't like fucking blow up. It's like, I don't know. That's just very funny to me. That's very funny to me. Much less funny and a little more prosaic. There's also another conspiracy theory that the Beatles have a whole bunch of songs that they've never released that they kind of put into like a vault or a safe or something like that. And they're like, hey, if we ever need money, like if we're ever broke or something, we can just release these like for some fast cash or whatever. And there are even titles of them floating around. Some of the titles of those being Left is Right and Right is Wrong. That's one of them. Colliding Circles. That's another one. Deck Chair. Pink Litmus Paper Shirt. There's like some of the other titles. And so the rumor started going around that it's like, oh, they have all these songs in the vault that they can put out if they ever need money. You know what I mean? The thing about it, though, is that this rumor has been pretty well debunked by the kid that started it. Because in 1971, there was this teenager, his name was Martin Lewis, and he sent like a Beatles bootleg like to a magazine, and he put like all these extra tracks on it like as a joke. Like he just made up a bunch of song titles, and he just put them on there to be funny, and that kind of spurred the theory. Now he came out later on and said, I just made that up. It's just like I was just fucking around. I didn't think anybody would take it seriously. And it just kind of snowballed. And I'm sure many of you will be not surprised to learn that even after he came out and said that he had made it up, people didn't believe him and thought that he was lying and he was just covering up because he had mistakenly released them or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I said, I love, like, I think it was it Carl Sagan, I think, He said that people that believed in these delusional kind of things, and then like you give them all this evidence to the contrary, and they just don't ever believe it. They find some way to justify it. He called them unsinkable rubber ducks. And I always kind of liked that phraseology. You know what I mean? Because that's exactly what they are. It's like if they are so invested, if you get so invested in this theory that there's all these unknown Beatles songs out there that they're hiding in some vault, and then some kid comes out and is like, "Nah, man, I just made it all up," then you're gonna add that kid into your conspiracy theory. No, well, they said they would kill him if like he told them. They're not gonna say, "Oh, well, maybe I was wrong," or "I'm dumb," or whatever. They're not gonna have any self-reflection. They're just gonna dig their heels in. You know what I mean? That's just how people do, sadly. So it's just kind of that's what people did after this one. Now, interestingly, Paul McCartney was also kind of a little bit into conspiracy theories himself, especially like the whole JFK assassination thing. He was real into that. Holy crap. So I don't know exactly like what his thoughts on it were, but I'm pretty sure he thought there was like some big conspiracy involved in the JFK thing. So it's kind of like ironic that there are so many conspiracy theories about the Beatles, and Paul McCartney himself is also kind of into conspiracy theories. I know a lot of people are, but did we ever do a show about the JFK assassination? I thought we did, but
I thought we did.
Yeah, we probably
maybe.
did.
Man, that's just so overdone, though.
It is, yeah. It's like that's why it's kind of like not that interesting to me, because it's been gone over, and I'm not really sure that we could like add anything new to the topic.
Yeah. He was assassinated. CIA had something to do with it.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They had motive.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it. They always use other people. They go through three different. Oswald was in the Free Cuba movement, which was directly linked to the CIA. He lived in the Soviet Union for a while on a program probably linked to the CIA.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is I don't think he actually shot him. I think he was the patsy. I think somebody else shot him, the real shooter. And the real shooter was probably a Cuban, probably a Cuban intelligence, somebody that worked for the CIA who was Cuban, because they were pissed at fucking JFK for what they did to Bad Pigs, the failed Cuban invasion and fucking ousting of Castro, because we tried to liberate Cuba in a failed attempt, and the president decided not to give air support to them, and they got wiped out. So not only did Oswald was involved in that, the Free Cuba movement, and I think whoever shot him also was involved in the Free Cuba movement, because they had motive. And there's evidence that the mob, the Italian mob out of Louisiana, out of New Orleans, because the Italian mob was in New Orleans, that they had motive also. A guy named Carlos Marcellos, also known as the Mafia Kingpin, Kingfish, as they call him, Kingfish. He was friends with the governor of Louisiana at the time. They had motive. So Kennedy had a lot of enemies. He was a very popular president. Probably would have been really good. He was trying to dismantle the military-industrial complex, and he wanted to get rid of the CIA because it's extremely corrupt. It's always been corrupt.
Well, they were going after the mob too.
And they're going after the mob.
We talked about that a little bit on the Marilyn Monroe show, because a lot of that was
Yeah.
involved in a lot of stuff about her death.
And they betrayed the Free Cuba movement, which the CIA also fucking had funded. So, yeah, there were a lot of people around at that time and around that case that had motive. So, yeah, and they've done this quite a bit. And they do it in other countries all the time. That's the job of the CIA, is to overthrow other people's governments, and they'll overthrow your own government here in the United States. They've done it a couple times, I think.
All right, so that's enough of that. Let's get into the John Lennon murder. So, as probably most people know, John Lennon was shot to death on December 8th, 1980, outside of his New York City apartment building, which is called the Dakota. Was that where they shot Rosemary's Baby?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they've shot like a lot of movies there. I thought that was where they shot Rosemary's Baby, but I'm not really sure. It's a very famous building in New York City, overlooks Central Park. So yeah. Now, interestingly, like a lot of things will say that he was shot by like a deranged fan, which is kind of true as far as it goes, but I don't know. I think it was like a lot more complicated than that. Like Mark David Chapman he had some complicated motives. He had been a fan of the Beatles in his younger years, but he had kind of fallen away from that later on as he grew into an adult. So I don't know if I'd call it necessarily, because I think this is usually portrayed as like a celebrity stalker kind of shooting, right? I don't think I would categorize it like that, because I don't think the motives were the same. I mean, obviously John Lennon is still dead, you know what I mean? But it's just kind of like, I don't think that was exactly his motive. His motives were like a little more nebulous, I guess, if you want to use that word. So I guess we'll just kind of get into, I was going to get into some background of like John Lennon and stuff like that, but it's like, you guys know who fucking John Lennon is, right? I mean, you know, co-founder of the Beatles. You know, he broke the Beatles up, you know, in 1970, I think it was, 1969, 1970. And then he went on his own, did his own solo stuff, and was actually quite successful doing that. There was a whole thing with Yoko Ono, the other people not liking her. I don't really know enough, and I know like a lot of Beatles fans like shit on Yoko Ono. I don't really know enough about her to make a judgment one way or the other. You know, it's like obviously he saw something in her, and it's like they vibed. So
he could have had those beautiful women in the world, and he went with her.
Well,
and she's not much to look at, but she must have some other
well,
qualities.
like I said, it's just kind of like, looks aren't everything.
Yeah,
you know?
I heard that she didn't put up with his shit.
Well, he probably liked that.
Yeah.
Maybe he liked that she kept him grounded.
Yeah.
I mean, I've also heard, and I don't know if this is true, I've also heard that he was kind of like abusive, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, he probably was, but I don't think she let him walk all over him. Because evidently, from what I heard, that she treated him like a normal person. And basically, was
maybe that was
that yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just kind of like you can't just judge, because sometimes you see like famous people or something like that, and it's like, why'd they end up with that person? They're not attractive, or like, you know what I mean? But it's like that person must be giving them something that maybe more quote unquote attractive people are not giving them.
Beatles fans didn't like her because they felt that she was hogging up his spotlight and trying to bring her musical projects into fucking existence, which she did. She made music too.
She was also
more
an artist.
like musical art. It kind of sucked.
She was an artist, and it's like however you feel about her art. You know, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. It's like I don't really care one way or the other. But it's just kind of like obviously they met each other. They vibed. He was into her shit. She was into his shit. They wanted to do some shit together, and it's like you can't really shit on either one of them for doing that. Like I also get like why the other guys didn't like it, but it's just kind of like, you know, what are you gonna do?
A lot of the Beatles purist fans didn't want her meddling into the Beatles. They were like, oh, and now she's gonna bring her. She's just trying to steal the spot. She's trying to get on stage. That's basically what they thought.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the thing about that too is that when you're a fan of some, especially if you're like a mega fan, you're gonna feel like you own them to some extent.
You don't want
and that you can control what they do, and if you do something they don't like, you're gonna get upset about it.
Right.
So it's just kind of like I don't really feel that. I don't like idolize people in that way because people are just fucking people. So
it's the same thing that was always happening back then. You have a band, and the band would get big. And then the girlfriends of the bands would try to start to get into the band. And then the fucking fans would be like, get that bitch off stage. You know, because that was always happening. There was that.
Well, and I think a lot of the female fans, too, they wanted to maintain the fantasy that it's like, I could go out with that dude. Yeah. And it's like, if his girlfriend is right there, then that fantasy is...
Yeah.
You know, you get a little disillusioned. So it's like you don't want to see that, so they get kind of butthurt about it. I get it.
Right. Which is probably kind of the same illusion that when with all female bands like the Go-Go's and the fucking Bananarama, a lot of guys don't realize, or they're looking at those girls and go, God, it's so hot, but it's not really clicking in their mind. Those girls are taken. They got boyfriends.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And if you found out they had boyfriends, you're like, oh, get that motherfucker off stage. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
get him out of
it's
there.
the same kind of thing.
You're fucking up my fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, to an extent, and I don't think it's as bad as it was, but I think that
It's because they don't hold the sway that they used to
That
because
they-
of the
yeah.
market share. Nobody cares anymore.
But like I said, it used to be that if somebody was hugely famous, whether they were male or female, they
Yeah.
usually tried to keep it on the down low a little bit.
Their
like if they were
relationships.
married or if
Yeah.
they had like a long-term relationship or something
even
like
actors and actresses.
that. Yeah, anything. Actors, musicians,
Yeah.
anything. So it's because they're like, well, we want to maintain the
An
illusion,
illusion of public
of
property.
availability.
Yeah, and public property.
And that like your
Yeah.
fans could actually have a shot with you.
Yeah.
And somebody, even though obviously there isn't any shot.
No.
But it's like they wanted, they just wanted to sell shit. They wanted to sell
Yeah.
movies or records or whatever. So it's just kind of like they're going to do anything to maintain that illusion that you're available.
Yeah.
Even if you're in real life, obviously you're not. But like I said, celebrities are just fucking people like everybody else. They have messy relationships. They have normal relationships. And it's just kind of like, it's kind of dumb for people to impose their own shit on somebody who doesn't even know them.
Yeah.
That's just really dumb to me. So it's just kind of like, I think that was kind of a lot of the shit, like the people that shit on Yoko. Like I said, I don't really have an opinion about her one way or the other. I think that's kind of mostly what it was. I think they were mostly shitting on her because they didn't like what it was doing to the Beatles and they didn't like what it was doing to John Lennon. And because they were fans, they thought they had some kind of say in the direction
of where everything was going. Yeah.
that they could go. And I'm like, they're just artists. They're going to do what they want to do. If he wanted to be with Yoko and he wanted to make music with Yoko, then that's what he's going to do. Like, you don't really have any control over that. He's his own fucking person. So it's like, I don't have the audacity to like tell other fucking artists what they can do, So
the public thought they owned all these people, though.
that's what I mean. And it's like, that's a, like I said, that's kind of a dangerous
It was another time.
mindset
It was another
to
time.
get into. You don't own other people. It's like,
Yeah.
just because they're in the public all the time, that doesn't mean they're public property. They're just a fucking person,
Yeah.
like anyone else is. And you can't like tell them what to do or make them do what you want them to do. It's stupid. Like, just like a regular person. So I don't know. So I don't get the whole Yoko hate. Like I said, I don't care about her one way or the other. They did seem to love each other and they liked working together clearly because they did all the time. So that's what he wanted to do. I'm not going to be upset about that. So yeah. So by the time that, 1980 rolled around when he was assassinated, now he had actually not done any solo stuff. His solo career was actually quite successful. He had moved to New York. Like I said, he moved to the Dakota. He really liked New York because he could live like a relatively normal person there. Like I said, New York City, there's a lot of celebrities that live there and you can just walk around. Like, generally no one will bother you. So you can live a normal life, pretty much. And I think that appealed to him because he couldn't really do that anywhere else. So him and Yoko lived in the Dakota. They by the time he was assassinated, they had Sean, who was the son. I think he was 5 at this point. So he had kind of not retired from music, but he's kind of drawn back from music a little bit. They were just kind of like living in their house, doing like domestic kind of stuff, and just like raising their kid and doing whatever. But at the time of his assassination, he was actually kind of doing a comeback. Like, him and Yoko had just done Double Fantasy. You know what I mean? And they were still kind of working on that. So he was kind of gearing up for a comeback. And really, it's kind of sad because it was only like a few weeks after that album came out that he got shot. You know what I mean? And it was like a big success. It won a Grammy after and all this other kind of stuff. It's a great album, actually. We had it when we were younger. But it's just kind of like, I don't know. Also, as we mentioned earlier, and this is kind of fueling into the CIA conspiracy theories, is that because John Lennon was very vocally against like the Vietnam War, he was very aligned with like the hippie movement and all that kind of stuff. And because he had said on TV at some point that it's like the Beatles are more popular than Jesus, and it was just kind of like an off-the-cuff comment. Like, I don't really see... Nowadays, I don't see why anyone would be offended by that. But back then, everybody was super offended. I even saw some clips of like radio stations back then, pretty like Christian radio stations and stuff. So like, bring all your Beatles records because he said that. Like now, like we can't listen to the Beatles anymore. Like bring your Beatles records and we're gonna burn them. Like we're gonna do this big thing. Like because they got all their records burned and stuff like that. I was like, you already bought them though, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say something though about alignment with the hippie movement. They weren't as aligned as a lot of people think they were though. A lot of the stuff that was happening in the hippie movement also verged on fucking like communist revolutionary stuff. And they weren't about that either. I mean, they said so in their lyrics. If you think you're going to get anywhere fucking holding pictures of Chairman Mao, you ain't going nowhere. Because they were more like trying to be reasonable in a time of fucking a lot of chaos.
Well, the thing about it is
they liked regular people who were reasonable and cool. They didn't like fucking...
Well, the shit about it is like a lot of people like that got demonized.
Yeah.
Were like that. They were just fucking reasonable ass people. They
Yeah.
weren't asking for anything crazy. Nobody's.
Yeah.
I mean the people they were talking about that were like they were trying to scare people with were like way fringe.
Yeah. But the thing, but yeah.
Nothing that John Lennon said or nothing that the Beatles said or nothing the hippies said struck me as particularly crazy. It wasn't out there.
It was just kind of normal.
It's just kind of regular.
And
they weren't out there.
Most people were regular, but during that time, the American public was fucking highly polarized between real fucking stick in the mud older people who didn't like anything really, and then on the other side,
miserable motherfuckers.
On the other side, you've had basically communist revolutionaries and terrorists. There was a lot of bombings going on.
I mean, there was a lot of that back then, but it's just kind of like that was like extreme. That was like most people were not like that.
Right, and a lot of the hippies were not extreme.
No, of course not.
All right, a lot
the
of hippies,
shit they were like that they were advocating for. It was just regular, reasonable shit. It wasn't weird.
And not all of the hippies were totally zonked out of their mind all the time on fucking LSD and shit. Some were, but most of them were just kind of regular people that were young. And didn't really want to be aligned with the older fucking crowd. They were pretty.
But you can't really
suffocating.
blame them.
There wasn't
honestly
much. They were pretty old school.
They were pretty lame.
They were pretty lame. And
pretty
then you had, and they weren't always wrong. Neither side was wrong about everything. It was a mixed fucking bag on both sides. And then on I guess you could say on the hippie side of it, it ranged to fucking communist revolutionaries blowing shit up, fucking weather underground.
But like I said, that was pretty.
Sybian Lebanese army doing
that was
bank
pretty
robberies.
extreme.
It's fucking extreme.
That's pretty extreme.
But the hippies were kind of being associated with that.
The other side is going to demonize. They're going to lump them all together, but it's like it's not.
Right.
They're not all like that. That's
people,
like a very small percentage.
The older people thought, well, if you're not one of us, then you're one of those.
Right. Well, like I said,
bipolar.
that's a very dangerous, again, black and white thinking. That's a very, very dangerous way to think. It's like, well, if you're not with us, you're against us. It's like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of nuance in there.
Most American hippies really kind of fell along the lines of like Jim Morrison and the Doors, which were kind of creative, and they didn't really I would call them like self-centered, maybe self-absorbed. These are the boomers that we grew up with. That's why they are the way they are, and not real political. They were more like trying to get away from all the shit and have their
they
own
just
life.
wanted to get out of
this fucking
the strictures.
system. Yeah,
that's all. They just wanted to be free of all these traditions and strict that didn't mean anything to them. That was all. And that's not, like I said, it's not weird, it's not crazy, it's not. And
if you look at Jim Morrison, who was, the hippies liked him a lot. He didn't really like a lot of the hippies. He thought they were kind of weak and airy-fairy. Jim Morrison actually kind of would have been goth in any other time. He was fun, but he also kind of looked at things on the dark side a lot, which I like the Doors. The Doors had a very goth vibe at times.
They did, big time. Yeah, well, like I said, you can see why, like, kind of post-punk bands, like Echo and the Bunnymen, probably the largest example, were very, very influenced by the Doors.
He was like, yeah, man, let's have a good time, but look, reality has a lot of bad in it. Maybe we should just learn to vibe with that.
Well, that's very gothic. I mean, it's like the whole goth rock thing is that we understand... we understand that there's darkness everywhere, and you're kind of like celebrating it. Yeah, or recognizing it. And understanding its power. Yeah. That's all. We eventually... You're not like sweeping under the rug or... Right. You recognize that it's there. You're kind of trying to find some beauty in it or some...
Yeah, because everything's recycled, and eventually we all die, and we're recycled.
Sure.
And, you know what I mean? And fucking... And
That's
there's a
all.
beauty to that.
Yeah.
It's the way of the Force.
That's all.
That's
all
what
it
they're
is.
talking about. And
Like I said, there's nothing nefarious. You know,
No.
we're not Satanists or anything like that. It's just
Yeah.
kind of like I don't believe in any of that stuff.
there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end.
It's just
Yeah.
a realization
Yeah.
of death,
Yeah.
a realization of tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just kind of like, you're not romanticizing it. You're just acknowledging.
Yeah, and really cool shit wouldn't be as cool if you didn't acknowledge the other option. And then you can kind of say, well, this is just part of the story.
Yeah.
This is what we've agreed.
all it is.
This is the movie that we have agreed to watch.
Yeah.
You know.
That's kind of how I always looked at
Yeah.
it. That's kind of how I always looked at it.
So Morrison was kind of like that. Morrison was more of a goth than a hippie.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Like I said, I would almost call the Doors like proto-goth.
Proto-goth, yeah. And the Velvet Underground even more.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Velvet Underground, totally proto-goth.
Yeah, that's with your goth and heroin is involved.
They wrote a whole ass song called Heroin.
Yeah.
It's like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, now you're
About how cool fucking heroin
You're
is.
now the Walking Dead.
And it's called Heroin. They're not even like giving it a pseudonym or
No,
anything.
no.
The song is called Heroin.
Yeah.
And that was like, what, 1969?
Yeah. Morrison was just about the bottle, whiskey bottle.
Yeah, he was drunk.
Yeah, he's drunk.
Well, like I said,
He's alcoholic.
I can't judge.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah, he
to-
was alcoholic though. He couldn't even drive.
That's true.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic because it's like I don't drink every day. I don't think about it most of the time. I like to drink when we're on the show or when we're out, but it's like other times I don't really think about it. Right? I think I've known an alcoholic. My dad dated an alcoholic. And she had booze in her purse always.
Yeah.
You couldn't have her over at the house and she'd sneak off to the bathroom and like, I've never done that. But like, yeah. So there's a difference. But yeah, so I think that because John Lennon, they did the bed-ins for peace. He protested the Vietnam War. There was all this kind of stuff. So he got on the FBI list, as a lot of people did back then. And so, but he also kind of became, even after he left the Beatles, because he was, super famous before that, but it's just like he kind of became, I almost want to say like the voice of a generation, kind of. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I think he had a lot of influence and a lot of power, like beyond just being a musician, beyond being, he was just like an icon. He was a cultural icon. And I think, sadly, in a lot of ways that might have contributed to, him getting killed the way he got killed. But like I said, the thing about Mark David Chapman, the guy that killed him, was that dude, honestly, I think he could have probably killed anybody because that was just kind of like how he was. So let's talk a little bit about Mark David Chapman. I watched a couple of documentaries about this guy because, like I said, I knew a little bit about him, but not much. So I watched some shit about him, and holy crap, this dude had some real problems. So, Mark David Chapman, we're just going to call him Mark from now on. He was just this really mentally ill motherfucker. He'd never done anything violent prior to this. No one had ever... He had never given anyone any indication that he would do anything like this. Everyone was kind of shocked when it happened. They couldn't believe it. It was just kind of this thing. So he was actually born in Fort Worth in Texas. And then when he was a kid, they actually moved to Decatur, Georgia. He grew up in a military family, actually. So his dad was in the Air Force. Allegedly, his dad was abusive. Not sure if that's true or not. I mean, it wouldn't shock me. That was pretty common back in this era. This was 1950s. And he was kind of, he was kind of a chubby kid. He wasn't real athletic. I saw a documentary where they were talking to a guy that was like a friend of his, like at school, and was in the same Boy Scout troop and all that kind of stuff. And he said he just seemed like a regular kid. Like he wasn't real athletic, or he didn't, and he seemed kind of quiet and everything like that. But he didn't seem weird. Like nobody thought he was weird or anything. Like he just wasn't good at sports, and he was just kind of like, I don't know. He was just like kind of regular otherwise. Now, when he was in his early teens, I'm going to say like 13, 14 years old, he started getting into, he got super, super into the Beatles. Like his dad bought him a Beatles album and he was real into that. And he also started getting into drugs, like doing LSD and stuff, like kind of sort of getting into the hippie quote unquote lifestyle. But to be honest, the thing about Mark David Chapman, I'm not a psychologist obviously, but it's just kind of like, the thing about him is that it seemed like his whole entire life he was looking for an identity. He was looking for a place to belong, because he felt like he didn't belong anywhere. So when he was a teenager, he kind of gets into the hippie thing. He kind of gets into the drug thing. He kind of gets into the Beatles records and all that. And I kind of feel like he maybe didn't belong there, or he felt like he didn't belong there, like he wasn't getting any place in that track. So it seemed like a couple years after that, he completely went the opposite track and became like a born-again Christian, you know? He's one of those people that was just constantly seeking an identity. Like he felt like he didn't belong anywhere. That it just struck me that he seemed like that kind of dude.
Lack of character.
Yeah. Somebody that was always looking for towards the outside, like to impose.
Yeah.
I don't think he would
I've
think
run
of it
into
like that.
before.
Yeah, I've known some people like that too. It's like I don't think he would think of it like that. Because he would just say, well, I'm just looking for a place to belong. I feel like I don't belong anywhere. But I said, you're looking for outsiders to validate you is what you're doing.
Because there's nothing inside.
Because there is nothing
Yeah.
inside is maybe what that. Because, I mean, honestly, like most people that have kind of a strong internal character or something like that, they don't
need anything.
seek that, or they don't need that, because it's just kind of like, well, they know who they are.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like he came across as a person that didn't have that. So he was always looking for outside validation.
Yeah.
And because he didn't find that in like the hippie scene or, you know, doing drugs and everything like that. And most of the people that knew him back at this, and this is when he was like, you know, 14, 15, they said, we felt like he was only doing that for like attention. You know what I mean? Which, yeah, that's a running kind of thing throughout his entire life. He was always looking for attention. Very, very, very narcissistic. Very self-absorbed. So he was just kind of looking for that, and he couldn't really find it. So he decides he's going to become a born-again Christian. And this was in 1971. And he was like hardcore about it, as a lot of born-again Christians tend to be, going around passing out like little Bible tracts and doing all that kind of stuff. And he even did like, he did a YMCA kind of thing where he'd go to like summer camps. And this, it seems like this period in his life when he was being like, he was like a counselor at YMCA camps and stuff. It seems like this was kind of the happiest period of his life, because he was real good with kids, like not in a weird way. Like I never got a sense he was a pedo or anything like that, but he was just real good with kids, like interacting with kids. Kids loved him. And everybody that worked with him said, man, he was so good with that. He was really charismatic, and like just, you know, kids adored him and shit like that. And he was really good at that. And I think that when he was doing that during this time period, that was the only time he'd felt validated, like as a person, because people were praising him and people would be like, man, you're so good at what you do and all this other kind of stuff. And I think he needed that, and he wasn't getting enough of it throughout his life for whatever reason. But you know, he did have kind of a good time doing that, like with YMCA and whatnot. And they even did work with like a lot of like Vietnamese like refugees and stuff. They were brought to like Arkansas and various other places. So he would like work with the YMCA. He would go and like hang out with these Vietnamese kids, and they thought he was the greatest. You know what I mean? And, like he won all kind of awards. He was like Counselor of the Year like a whole bunch of times and stuff like that. Everyone thought he was a cool guy. And like I said, I think this was kind of the happiest time of his life. And unfortunately, it just went downhill from here. So after that period of his life ended, I feel like he kind of went into a little bit of a spiral. He'd never been a great student. He didn't go to college or anything like that. And his grades in school were kind of mediocre. So he didn't really, I think he always expected greatness but he didn't really do any work to achieve that. It almost seemed like he wanted it handed to him.
Yeah.
He was one of those kind of people. Like, he didn't really want to do anything. Because, you know, people that become great, you might not see all the work that goes into it.
You have to suffer a lot.
I mean,
And make a lot of
not
comebacks.
always, unless you grew up in, like, some millionaire family or something like that and had everything handed to you, and then you just got lucky. But most people that are successful, you don't see a lot of the stuff that happens behind the scenes. Like, a lot of them do actually work for it.
Greatness always starts small, and you're in adversity, and then you're overcoming adversity, and you're getting big. It's growth. You know, fucking Nietzsche talks about it. And then eventually, after you've overcome a bunch of obstacles and gotten stronger and bigger, I guess you could say. In other words, the scope of your life is bigger. You'll start to eventually achieve greatness. That's when you recognize that you have agency. Not everybody has that. And I think there are certain people, because of their psychological profile, I think maybe some people can never really have agency. The world is always doing something to them. They can't really do anything to the world. It's kind of like they're lacking something. Something in the conscious mind isn't there.
And here's the thing.
And it's the same kind of person that lusts for spiritual awakening is what they call it. They go from one cult to the next.
Yeah.
Always looking for something
like
on
I said,
the outside.
always gonna watch. You have to. Anybody that's
almost
always
like
looking for outside validation,
Yeah.
that's like a dangerous
Right,
because you're
you're
gonna
looking
fall into all kind of fucking bullshit.
Yeah, you find that there's certain kind of people that are always going from one religion or one cult to the next because they have to have some kind of spiritual. They don't know what they need. They need some kind of spiritual enlightenment, and they can't get it from within. So they have to.
Or they
join
don't
cults.
understand that maybe there isn't such a thing.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, and well, you see it a lot with like maybe like recovering drug addicts, and
Yeah.
it's like you know they got off drugs, but then they went into some weird Christian cult or something like
Yeah.
that, or they went into Scientology or some kind of
I
crap.
think it boils down to they can't really depend on themselves. They don't trust
I
themselves.
think that, which is sad.
So they want to
That's
depend
kinda
on
sad.
something else.
Yeah, they need
'Cause it's easier.
something outside
Yeah.
to support them, like a
Yeah.
support, like a scaffolding.
And this dude struck me as that kind of person.
He's
But
absolutely that.
But he's
absolutely
But
that.
he's not religious. This is a secular.
Well, no,
thing.
he was.
Well, okay,
Yeah,
but he's not doing it through looking for cults. He's trying to look for recognition.
he became
In the
because, like I
social
said,
world,
he
right.
became a born again Christian.
Yeah. Okay.
And he
then
got
that's what he
super into
is.
that.
He's one of those then.
And he was just kind of like, you know, he had the whole Jesus came to me
Right.
moment. I don't know if that really
And
happened, but that's what he
it's a
said.
small minority, and the people that are like that are not your average person that goes to church or average religious person. This is a minority. It's like a hardcore, and I think it's a psychological default. Sorry, a psychological fault. And there's certain people that are really susceptible to cults and religions.
Yeah, it's definitely a type of personality.
Because whenever they get into a cult, they'll do it for a few years, and then it doesn't give them what they're looking for. They'll go to another one.
So they go to another
and then another one, and then another one. Yeah.
Well, like I said, you see the same thing with people who were like drug addicts.
Yeah.
And then they get off drugs, but then they end up in some weird Christian cult or
Yeah.
something like that. They're just exchanging one addiction
Yeah.
for another. Is
Yeah.
all that is.
And,
Because they're looking for an outside scaffolding to hold up their personality because they don't believe they can hold their own personality up. Because they don't have the self-confidence, I guess,
It's something to do with the way their brain
to
work.
stand on their own. Yeah, and
Some way
like I
their
said, it's
brains
not.
work a certain way.
It's kind of sad, but like I said, it's just kind of some people's personalities are.
Most
like
people
that.
have no need for any of that bullshit. They might need a superficial framework to work through. You know, in one country it might be Christianity, but it's like cultural Christianity. In another country it might be cultural Islam, but they don't really take it that seriously. In another country back in the day it might have been communism in the Soviet era. That might have been something that, yeah, but they don't really believe in it that well. It's just something. They don't really believe in it that much or don't really think about it that much. It's just kind of like a culture to them that helps ground them and give them a feeling of normal. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this is like an extremist
Yeah.
where they have to be in an extreme religious situation to have fulfillment. I had one of them try to tell me that one time. He worked with us for a while. He went from one cult to the next. And I had no idea what that motherfucker was talking about.
I don't understand that. I don't understand.
But don't you want fulfillment and enlightenment?
I'm like,
and
what are you talking?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Life is just life.
I don't understand.
Chill the fuck out. But don't you want to be and all these little
They
spiritual
want to be more than
what they are. Right, yeah.
Just be what you are and be happy with that.
Don't you want a deeper connection to God and universe? And I'm like,
I don't know what you mean. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about.
You just
that
live.
doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
doesn't mean
yeah.
anything to me.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I think that's probably why I hopefully,
Yeah.
and I know this, I would hopefully never get sucked into a cult, because that kind of shit doesn't mean anything to me. It just doesn't mean anything to me. I don't understand what you're talking about.
And that's not what religion was talking about anyway. That's not what religion's talking about.
I don't need a spiritual connection to anything. I don't need.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're talking about. That doesn't make any sense to
Reli-
me. It
religions
doesn't
were-
sound fun to me. It just doesn't.
Religions were fanboy and fandoms of the old days. Like, oh, I like Star Wars. That's not real Star Wars. I like the real Star Wars.
Yeah, it's no
That's all it
different.
was.
That's kind of how I think of
That's
it.
all it was.
Which, like I said, I like to do that kind of shit too. I like to nerd out about stuff, but it's just kind of like I don't get spiritual enlightenment from it. I don't know. Like I said, that's why I don't get any of that new agey kind of shit, or I don't do cult shit or anything like that. I don't like people telling me what to do, for one thing. So anybody like being cult leader and be like, hey, do this and that, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. So it's just kind of, I don't know. I don't need that. I think most people don't need that. But a certain type of people do. And I definitely think Mark David Chapman, I think he had some issues. What I heard, I watched a documentary about him, and they said that his mom was, like, he was, his dad, I think, was kind of gone all over, was abusive or whatever. But I think he had a pretty decent relationship with his mom. But I think his mom was also super narcissistic. And what I heard was that his mom told him throughout his entire childhood how awesome he was, and it's like he was gonna do all this great stuff and all this other kind of thing, which, while that's marginally better, well, it's probably a lot better than telling your kid they suck and they'll never amount to anything, because that's terrible. Please don't do that. But it's like, it's also not great to tell your kid you are super special, you are better than everybody, you are super awesome, you're gonna be a great person. Like, I don't think that's not great either.
You tell them they're so great, you could tell them
because you're setting them up for failure. Because when they just have a regular ass life, they're gonna think, oh, that's not good enough, I'm not yet. And I think that's what happened in this
Another
case.
thing is when you tell them that, you're in a way telling them that no matter what they do, they're gonna be great. So what they do doesn't matter. So they can do something good or bad, it still won't matter, you're still great. So then they start thinking there's no fucking repercussions.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and fucking go fight fucking federal troops out on some street, you know what I
Go
mean?
be a serial killer.
Go, yeah.
Mommy will still
go
love
throw
you.
a brick at a fucking cop and watch what happens to you. You know what I mean? They'll fucking kill you. There are repercussions. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so like I said, while it's not as abusive as telling your kid that they suck, it's still also not great telling them that they are better than everyone. And
that's the same as not having repercussions.
That's also not great. Kids need boundaries.
You make them bitches watch Conan. Everything you need to know is in Conan. Fucking Conan's in the Wheel of Suffering and fucking fighting the gladiatorial games. He fucking sucks. He's a slave, but he realizes he matters. That what he does matters. Okay, fucking in front of the roar of the crowds. You can live or you can die. Too. You're not that special. You have to work through that. But fucking, that's the weird thing. A lot of these youngsters, I'm watching them, listening to what they're talking about, and I know some of them like that. They don't think there's any repercussions to anything. They think as long as you think a certain way, it'll turn out all right. Or as long as you think you're good, then you can do whatever you want. It's not how it actually works. You can think you're great, and then you're fighting for good, and that motherfucker will lay you low because you just broke a law. You know, fucking, it's that simple. There are repercussions for what you do. And it's just like, you know, I look at these fucking, right now what's going on, you got these European countries. European countries want to go fight Russia.
because they think that's the right thing to do. They're going to stand up against fucking dictatorship. They don't have any armies. They're going to fucking fight Russia. They're going to get fucking annihilated. Like, you might get pissed off that some big motherfucker's being bad, and you're going to jump in the ring. I'm going to beat his ass. But that dude weighs 230 pounds. You weigh fucking 140. Okay? You're getting fucking shit kicked out of you. There are repercussions, and there are limits to what you can do. Old-timey Christians didn't believe that back in fucking... They believed in Gnosticism, that if you thought the right way, that you'd be saved and nothing could bad happen to you. No. You could think a certain way, the Roman authorities would kill you.
Not the way the world works.
Yeah, it's not how it actually works. No.
You can think all you want. You can try to manifest all you want.
You can't manifest.
Reality is going to kick you in the balls.
Reality is the ultimate fucking... Yeah, some other people have a vote in what reality is. Just because you're imagining some shit... and you think you're pure and that you're good, that doesn't mean you're going to win.
Because you're not the only person.
You're probably going to die.
On Earth.
Every motherfucker that's died thought he was doing the right thing. Yeah, other people had a vote. Okay? Those bitches are on the ground.
That's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that people, like terrible people, they think most of them think that they're doing... They don't think that they're villains. They don't think they're
the hero.
Yeah. Story.
Yeah.
Most people think they're the heroes in their own story.
Yeah.
Which is pretty terrifying to think about. This dude absolutely did. Which, like I said, I didn't understand the extent of it until I watched a bunch of stuff about him. So, this motherfucker... So, he... Like I said, he was a Beatles fan when he was younger. And he was really into them. But he kind of like... He became a born-again Christian. Got super obnoxious about it. And he kind of like lost track of it over the years. I kind of heard also that when one radio station did like some, hey, bring your Beatles records and burn them or whatever, that he did that. I don't know if he did, but his friend said that he said he did. So I don't know. So he was kind of all in on, yeah, I'm leaving behind my sinful past or whatever the fuck. Which, like I said, I don't know. Don't even get me started. So yeah. Now his next obsession after the whole born again Christian thing, he got super, as many insufferable assholes have done over the years. He became obsessed with J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. Yeah, it's a great book. We read it in school, but it's kind of one of those books. There's a lot of books like this. I don't know. American Psycho was the first one that came to my mind, but it's just like where people, or Fight Club, that's a movie, but where people kind of misinterpret the message of it, I guess. So he read Catcher in the Rye, and he completely vibed with it. He was just kind of like, Holden Caulfield, the anti-hero of that story, this is me. This dude gets it. And he just read it and reread it like obsessively. Like he became completely fucking, I don't know. He was just completely into it. And so he reads this book a bunch of times, and he gets to a thing where, I mean, the thing about Catcher in the Rye is that it's a little bit satirizing. I guess it's, I don't know, it's kind of double layered because it's sort of satirizing the hypocrisy of adults, you know, and imposing their views on teenagers or whatever. But it's also kind of satirizing that attitude of like teenagers thinking that way about adults. But I think he didn't realize maybe like the layers of it. So he was just kind of completely relating to Holden Caulfield, and he's like, yeah, man, all the adults in the world, even though he's kind of an adult, he was like an older teenager at this stage, but he's just kind of like, yeah, man, they're all phonies, they're all hypocrites, they're all this, that, and the other, which a lot of people are, but it's just kind of like, you know, he just kind of based his whole identity around it. And honestly, he got so into this book that, spoiler alert, like later on, after he had done the assassination, he left he was reading a copy of Catcher in the Rye, like, when they arrested him. And he even wrote in it, like, this is my statement. You know what I mean? So, like, that's how much he related to that character. Which, you know, not great. It's just, I don't know. The Catcher in the Rye, like I said, it's a great book, but it's one of those books where if somebody tells me that they super related to that protagonist, I'm gonna like look askance a little bit, you know?
Man, the Norwegians are up here fucking 4 o'clock in the morning. Some of them are peeling off to go to sleep, go to bed.
Damn.
4 o'clock in the morning. Don't you bitches work? Come on.
I mean, they might have to.
You gotta go to work, bro. Next.
I mean, I do too, but it's only 10 o'clock here. So
Yeah.
it's fine.
We work from home.
So yeah. But yeah. So he gets into that. Now, he's still going through a lot of depression at this time period. He did a couple of suicide attempts. At one point, he actually did, like, he did the, you know where you put the tube in your exhaust and, like, put it in your window or whatever? Like, I don't know how hard he tried to do it, but it's like he tried to do it like that, and apparently, like, some guy came and knocked on the window, like, hey, man, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And he thought, oh, it's an angel, and he saved me. Because, like I said, born-again Christian. So it was that. Now, trying to reinvent his life, I guess. In 1972, he actually moved to Hawaii. He did another suicide attempt there. Carbon monoxide in the car. And after this suicide attempt, he was actually hospitalized for a time. Like, they put him in an institution for a little while. Now, they actually liked him so much at the hospital that they let him work there a bit later. Because, like I said, everybody thought he was, like, a cool guy. He was just kind of a chill, like, quiet guy. He didn't seem violent or anything like that. Now, in 1978, he goes on a world tour, which had been inspired by Around the World in 80 Days. Like, he just got a bunch of loans and decided he was going to go around the world or whatever. He also got married, which, you know, he married this woman named Gloria, and she was a Japanese-American travel agent. That was in 1979. But that didn't really seem to help his mental state much. His friends, even when he was younger, said that he told them that he had what he called little people in his head talking to him. And he himself said that this might have stemmed from something that his parents gave him when he was a kid, which was just kind of like this... It was just kind of like this set that had all these kind of cutout, like a paper doll kind of situation, but it was like all these little cutout people. And like you put them in a little scene or whatever. And he said, I used to play with those on the floor all the time. And he's like, and over time, I started to think that these little people were like really alive, I guess, and were like talking to him, you know? So, like I said.
I don't know if he's bullshitting.
I mean, I don't know, because his friend said that he told them that, like, when he was younger.
All right.
Like, before he was probably old enough to bullshit like that. So I think he probably had some issues.
It sounds like he might be slightly, what do you call it?
Schizophrenic. That's what I thought. So he had that whole thing going on. Now, after he got married, like I said, that kind of seemed like, and he moved to Hawaii, that kind of seemed cool for a while, but it's just kind of like, he started drinking a lot more. He always had what he thought were like dead-end jobs. He usually works as like a security guard, which he thought of kind of like the lowest of the low.
Yeah, that's a dead-end job back then.
Which, I get it, but hey, it's a job. Some people
there were more opportunities back then, though, so they're like...
Some people don't even have jobs.
Yeah.
Some people are living in fucking refrigerator boxes on the street. So just kind of like appreciate what you got, you know what I mean? And actually, security guard, that sounds like a pretty cool job.
You just sit around.
You just sit around, you get left alone. You can just sit there and read for 8 hours and get paid for it. That sounds pretty awesome.
You're only there for insurance purposes.
Like, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having that job.
I did it when I got out of the Army. Boring.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's boring, but like I said, you can do whatever you want to do.
I was partying.
Nobody's watching.
Yeah, I'd be partying.
Yeah. Like, you could drink if you wanted. You could read. You could just read. You could do all kinds of stuff.
There was no internet back then. It fucking have been better if you had a cell phone.
Well, yeah, because then you could just like sit there and play
yeah.
around like for 8 hours and like I said, get paid for it. That sounds pretty
Right.
awesome. So yeah, so around this time, so he starts drinking a lot more, and he starts getting obsessed with celebrities, and he kind of harkens back to when he was a Beatles fan, you know, when he was a kid, and he starts to think that John Lennon, because of I guess like the image that John Lennon portrayed, like particularly with the song Imagine and how he was this kind of like everything for peace and everything like that. And then he's like, man, but this motherfucker is rich and he's like living this lavish ass lifestyle and all this other kind of crap. And so he's like a sellout. He's a phony, just like Holden Caulfield says in The Catcher in the Rye. And so he starts to kind of epitomize John Lennon as like the phonies that he's talking about. Now, I should note that Mark David Chapman, he didn't specifically target John Lennon. He was thinking about other celebrities too that he could maybe kill. Johnny Carson was one of those.
He'd never get near Johnny.
David Bowie was
Probably
one of
never-
those.
He'd never find him, probably.
Jackie Kennedy Onassis was one of those.
Hard to find her. Yeah.
That's what I mean. And like I said, I think the reason that he chose John Lennon was, one, because he'd been a fan when he was a kid, and two, because John Lennon was accessible.
He was in New York.
Like, he just lived in New York. He lived in a... Everybody knew where he lived.
Yeah.
He just walked around the streets like a normal-ass person. The other celebrities he was thinking about... I mean, Johnny Carson, he did The Tonight Show. That was in New York, and he came and went from the studio.
And that bitch was always in a blacked-out limousine. You'd never find him.
So I think that the reason that he specifically chose John Lennon in the end was just because he was easier to get to. Because, you know what I mean? He was just kind of out there in the world like a regular person.
Carson would go up to his house and he'd fucking have an automatic gate that would open and close behind it. You'd never see him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he'd get into that fucking limousine in an underground parking lot in the studio and fucking get out. You wouldn't know which car was his. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like I said, John Lennon at that stage didn't really take any of those precautions because he didn't feel like
he needed to.
He needed to. A lot of celebrities didn't. You didn't really at that time. Like I said, I think it was kind of this assassination that made a lot of celebrities think, holy shit, we're not safe. We can't like walk around the street anymore. We have to like do all this subterfuge like to keep all these fucking weirdos.
Well, this is he's one of the first global celebrities.
Yeah.
Prior to this, like say Elvis wasn't a global celebrity until later, towards the end of his career. He was more local. Only America. You know what I mean? I think Japan knew about him. England probably knew about him, but I don't think he would have fucking male stalkers.
Right.
Female stalkers, maybe. But they knew he lived at Graceland.
Yeah.
And evidently, girls would be outside Graceland, and when...
Yeah, all the time.
And when he felt like it, he'd go out there and fucking go pull a couple of men. And fuck them. According to the fucking Memphis Mob.
Free ladies.
Yeah, they'd record it and shit. They had little films and shit, making little fucking Super 8 films and shit. He'd fuck some of them. And then let him go. He'd let him go afterwards.
Release them back into the wild.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Hey, I fucked Elvis.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty funny.
But But the thing is, he had a big gate.
Yeah.
You couldn't get to him unless you wanted to. And he had at least 6-7 guys with him. They were all armed.
Yeah.
The Memphis Mob, what do you call
So
them?
in a
They all
way, he
had
was kind of
45s.
ahead of his time.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think the reason John Lennon liked New York so much was
Yeah.
because most people leave you alone.
Yeah. Elvis was ahead of his time. He carried a gun and all
He
his...
wanted to live like a normal person, and he
Yeah.
couldn't do that anywhere else
Right.
except in New York City.
Right.
But as it turned out, he couldn't live there like a normal person either.
Yeah, in Memphis, you had to have a gun. And they were all military. People don't realize, fucking Elvis was fucking sergeant in the army.
Because here's
45.
the thing.
They all had 45s. They were all deputies. They all sheriff deputies. They had badges. It's wild, bro. Because they were all deputized.
Because here's the thing. I've been to New York several times. And the crazy thing is that you see a lot of famous people live there. And a lot of famous people go there for various things, like they're shooting movies or whatever. So you see famous people kind of all the time. And it's like nobody bothers them. It's crazy. I don't think that happens anywhere else. I saw...
Yeah.
Who did I see? I saw Liz Phair walking around in the street. I saw fucking... I think it was John Waters. Yeah. So you just see like regular... Like they just walk around like regular ass people.
Yeah,
And
Billy
nobody,
Idol would walk around.
nobody bothers them.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of celebrities like it there. Because most people just fucking mind their own business.
Even though it was kind of ghetto during a lot of that time.
Yeah, it's not really like that anymore, but it's like... It was back then.
It was kind of ghetto back then, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not where John Lennon lived, but...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was kind of a nice area. So, Mark Chapman, this shit was methodical, though. Like, he did plan this shit ahead. He had planned that he's like, well, he's obviously not gonna be great, or what he expected to be. He's not gonna be super special on his own volition, I suppose, like through his job or anything else. He was just some dumpy, regular ass person, just like anybody else. And he just couldn't be happy with that. So it's just kind of like, well, he decided that he was gonna have to kill someone to get that kind of fame. And like I said, it seemed like he didn't really think of that like as a bad thing. He didn't really, I don't know, he didn't really seem to kind of assign any kind of moral weight to it. So he buys a gun, Charter Arms 38 in
cheap
for $169.
Yeah, it was a cheap Charter Arms Bulldog.
Yeah,
probably.
and he bought it in October of 1980, a couple months before the shooting.
Ugly looking
Now,
little revolver.
because he had worked as a security guard in some airports, he knew that, hey, if you put this in your checked luggage, they won't. I mean, you can't put it in your carry-on bag, obviously, because they're gonna like fucking see it. But it's like if you put it in, this is not like this anymore. But it's like back then, he's like, if you put it in checked luggage, then they won't get it. Now he didn't have any ammo for it. I think he got some ammo like some other place. Now, I've seen... Okay, so one of the documentaries I saw said that he got ammo when he was in New York. But then another thing that I saw said that no, he got some from some friend that he knew in Georgia. I don't know which of those is true. But he didn't buy both of those things at once. You know what I mean? Like, he got them both separately.
New York typically had pretty tight gun control.
But he got 3.
Even back in those days. Well, it doesn't matter.
Because, like I said, he had worked at airports, so he kind of knew what the protocol was. And he knew how he could get the shit passed.
In the U.S., the laws are more like suggestions. If you can get around anything here, so you can.
Well, anything can be got around.
Anything you can get around anything.
Want
here.
to,
Doesn't really matter. Yeah. So just it's kind of.
I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying that there's ways.
That kind of shit is futile here in the U.S. There are more guns than there are people. That's literally, because we have hundreds of years worth of them floating around. It's nothing to find a fucking pistol from the 1930s. They're all over the place. So you just, everybody's got them. If you want one, you can get one. You can get many.
So, so the first time he was going to make an attempt was shortly after he bought the gun. He actually like had a friend that showed him how to use it and everything like that. And then he flew to New York in late October, a couple days before Halloween, and he stayed at the YMCA. And then he moved to the Sheraton that's there in Midtown Manhattan. Now, he did actually kind of go and hang around the Dakota, where John Lennon and Yoko Ono lived. But, I mean, he was there for a few weeks, and he just never seemed to... I think he thought that he could just, like, wander around and, like, run into John Lennon, and he would kind of know when the right moment was. And that didn't really happen. I think the first time he was there for, like, 3 weeks... And he didn't really see him, and it's like he hung around the building, and I guess like the time wasn't right or anything like that. So after that, so I don't know if people know, but he was there. He was in New York for like 3 weeks, a couple months before the shooting, like kind of scoping it out. And he was gonna do it then, but it just didn't work out for him, I guess. So he flies back to Hawaii. Now, allegedly, he's married at the time, and he told his wife what he was doing, like what he was going to do. And she didn't say anything. I don't know how he phrased it. I don't know if she thought he was kidding. I don't really know like what the situation was, but evidently he did tell his wife what he was planning on doing, and she didn't do anything about it. But like I said, I don't want to cast aspersions on her because he might have just said it like it was a joke, and maybe she didn't take it serious. I don't really know. But apparently he did tell her.
She probably couldn't wrap her head around that.
Maybe not. Like I said, I don't know, man. Like if somebody came in and said like, "Hey, I'm gonna shoot this one," I'm like, "Yeah, fucking sure you are, whatever." Like I don't think I would report it either because it's like you don't think they're fucking serious. Come on.
Yeah, it's like saying I'm gonna shoot the president. You're like, yeah, sure you are.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
I'm gonna shoot Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
All right.
Whatever. Yeah, so maybe it was just like a situation like that. Like I know in hindsight, because he actually did do it, that it's gonna look bad, but it's just kind of like she probably just thought it was bullshit. You know what I mean? So yeah. Now, so he comes back to New York, on December 7th, and he starts scouting the Dakota. Like I said, because everybody knew that John Lennon and Yoko Ono lived in the Dakota, there were a lot of fans that kind of hung out there, photographers, stuff like that, would hang out there, kind of taking pictures of him and whatnot when he left, because they just, like I said, they didn't have bodyguards or nothing. They just came and went like regular ass people. Now, so he basically, like I said, at this time, he almost seemed, at least according to what he said later, that he was really conflicted about it. That he was just kind of like, I don't think he had the quote-unquote little people in his head anymore, but he did say that the little people had been replaced with like a devil. So it's kind of like a devil-angel situation. And he's saying that the devil's telling him, yeah, you need to kill him and stuff. But he, like on the other side of him, they're saying like, don't do it or whatever. And he's also like real super Jesus-y at this time too. So he's like, God's telling me don't do it. Like the adult part of me is saying don't do it, but this evil child, what he called the evil child inside of him, is saying, yeah, you need to do this. So there's all of this going on. So December 8th, 1980, John Lennon and Yoko Ono, they actually did they posed for that very famous photograph by Annie Leibovitz in their apartment, which later turned up on the Rolling Stone cover, which is him naked with Yoko Ono. You know what I mean? Everybody knows that photo. It's very iconic. So they did that. And then around 3 p.m, John Lennon gave an interview to RKO Radio, talking about the Comeback album, which had just come out, and, his son and everything like that, and how he's domesticity and all that kind of stuff. Now, Mark David Chapman had been waiting outside this building pretty much all day. Now, he didn't see John Lennon leave in the morning, but he did see the kid, Sean Lennon, who was 5 at the time, and the nanny, whose name was Helen. And he kind of shook hands with the kid, which is pretty creepy, like in hindsight, because he's going to kill his dad, like many hours later. Now, later that afternoon, John Lennon and Yoko Ono go to a recording studio there in Manhattan. They're going to work on the mix of Walking on Thin Ice, which was, I believe, one of Yoko Ono's songs. And when they're leaving, they just come out the regular ass door, like I said, and Mark Chapman is sitting there. Now, he had bought a copy of Double Fantasy, which is the album that had just come out, for this very purpose, so he could look like a regular fan. So he approaches John Lennon and asks him to sign it. And he said later that John Lennon was actually very nice to him and was just kind of like, okay, man. And he signed it for him and everything like that, just fucking regular, you know what I mean? And he's like, man, is that all you wanted? And all that other kind of stuff. He's like, yeah, man, thanks a lot, whatever. And then the creepy thing about this is that, remember how I said, like, photographers and stuff were, like, hanging out outside the building? There's a photographer named Paul Goresh, and he hung out by this building all the time, getting pictures of John Lennon and stuff. And he took a picture of John Lennon signing Mark David Chapman's album, and you can see Mark David Chapman in the background. It's a creepy ass fucking photo, because you know what happens like later, like a few hours later. So he got like one of the last pictures of John Lennon like alive, which is pretty fucking creepy. So they go to the studio, they work on this song for several hours. They leave the studio like a little before 11 p.m. and they drive back to the Dakota, obviously, where they live. And they come out, and Mark David Chapman said that he had been waiting there like all day, and he saw the limo pull up, and even though he couldn't see anybody in it, he knew that this was them and that this was it. This was like the time, And he's like, the whole time, the voices in his head, like I said, the adult in him was just kind of saying like, no, don't do this or whatever. But he's like the devil, the evil child, as he called it, like in his head was like, do it, like that whole time. So Yoko comes out first. She walks a little bit ahead, and then John Lennon's a little bit behind her.
A little bit ahead.
No, she walked a little bit ahead, I said.
Okay.
I said she walked a little bit ahead.
Right, yeah.
Are you 5? Like, she walked a little bit ahead.
I was fucking...
And so he walks a little bit behind her. And then Mark David Chapman, like, kind of comes up behind them. Now, I don't know if he called... Some sources say that he said, hey, Mr. Lennon, or some sources say he didn't say anything. But basically, they just kind of walk by him. Most sources say that John Lennon kind of looked at him like, hey, I kind of recognize you from earlier because he'd signed his record from earlier or whatever. But they didn't really like talk or anything. And he just keeps walking. And then Mark David Chapman like gets behind him and just does the police stance like that and fires 5 shots.
Which that's all the Charter Arms has.
4 of which went into John Lennon. 1 of which missed him and went into a window. But pretty much he shot him in the back is what he did. Right in the back. Now, so basically, the doorman, whose name was Jose Perdomo. Now, he heard the shots and he said that he saw David, because Mark Chapman didn't go anyplace. He just kind of stood there. And according to the doorman, he said, I just shot John Lennon. And he's just like, okay, well. Now, one of the things that I heard, too, was that the doorman was like, get the fuck out of here. Like, not like, get the fuck out of here, like you just murdered somebody and I'm covering for you. But get the fuck out of here, you just shot John Lennon, you motherfucker. It was just kind of more like that kind of situation. Like, he would, So it was like that. Now,
let me give you some of this here.
Okay. So now, apparently, the building superintendent comes out and puts a jacket over him. They call the cops, as you would. And Yoko Ono, of course, is freaking the fuck out, as you would, because your husband just got fucking shot next to you, so that's horrible. So, yeah. Now, the cops show up. One of the documentaries I saw had a pretty good, like, extensive interview with, like, one of the first cops that, like, arrived at the scene. And he was kind of losing it. You know what I mean? I don't know. They didn't really say if he was like a big Beatles fan or something like that. Because he said at first when you got there, like you just saw this dude standing there. Because, when John Lennon was shot, he was like kind of behind. And they didn't really see him at first. So it's like we just see this dude kind of standing there. Like, and they are thinking, is this a shooter? We don't know. And it's just kind of like they're kind of doing this thing. And they go around the back and see the body. And it's like you couldn't see him at first because his face was like right like down against the pavement. And it's like, so when I leaned down and like pulled his face to the side, and he's like, man, that dude looks like so familiar. And then like he's like, as soon as I thought that, like I realized like who it was. And then he just like then he just flipped the fuck out. You know what I mean? It's like, that fucking can't be. You know what I mean? So I think, and like I said, you could tell he wasn't crying, but he was like on the verge of it. Like you could see like the whole time. And it was like, and this is many, many years later. So I thought it was kind of fucked up. So the cops show up, and then Mark Chapman did not attempt to run away. Because like I said, he wanted to be, the reason that he did this was because he wanted to be famous. He thought, in his mind, at least according to a lot of psychiatrists, was that he thought he should be as famous as John Lennon. Like, John Lennon didn't deserve to be famous, like he did. So the fact that he'd killed John Lennon now meant that he was taking over the mantle of John Lennon. Like, now he could be John Lennon, kind of thing. So he didn't run. He just stood there. He's like, when the cops first showed up, like, the cops were like, we showed up, and, like, the dude's just standing there with his hands up, like that. Like, and he didn't try to run away or nothing. And, like, the gun was right there. He just was there with the book and everything. They thought that was crazy. Like I said, they didn't know he was a shooter at first because they didn't see the body at first. But yeah, they're like, he didn't try to run or anything. So he just, like, admitted to it. Because that's what he wanted, right?
He wanted to get caught, yeah.
He wanted to get caught.
Yeah, the cops later on, I saw his interview. He's like, dude, you just ruined your life. When he was like,
Yeah, he didn't care.
He didn't care. And the cops were fucking, the cops that were the first responders that showed up, they were teary-eyed talking about it.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. That dude,
they were like, man,
he was still broken up about it, like decades later.
Like, I'm looking at this guy because he looks familiar.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? And then later on,
because like you said, you couldn't see his face at first because it was just in the sidewalk,
He rolled him over
and
and he goes,
kind of turned his head like that. And then he realized who it was.
Yeah, and then
he's like, the other cop said, that's John Lennon.
That's John Lennon. Yeah, so it fucked the cops up.
Yeah, they're still fucked up about it nowadays. Because like I said, the documentary I saw last night, like, they're old men now, but they're still fucked up about it.
They were with Yoko trying to fucking keep her calm while they're rushing him to the hospital. You know,
Yeah, and here
he
was the
like,
fucked up thing.
yeah.
They called the ambulance. He's like, we call it the bus. That's what the police call it. So we called the
Yeah.
bus. And he's like, and they're like, look, man, we're like 10 minutes away. They're like, bro, this dude's not going to make it 10 minutes. So they put him in the police car and took him to the hospital in the police car. And he's like, and it only took like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, because they couldn't wait for the ambulance because he's not going to make it. So they took him in the police car. And they took Yoko in the other police car, like, because there were a couple. And they get to the hospital. They talk to the dude, like the surgeon that like worked on him too. Like they brought John Lennon in, and they opened up. He'd been shot 4 times, like in the back, and it just pretty much they all just went through his chest. Like I said, one missed, but like And so the surgeon's like, look, we opened his chest like you would do, and they're massaging. The surgeon's like, I had his heart in my hands. I was like massaging it. That's what you do, like trying to.
And they cut him open.
Yeah, they cut him open, and they were trying to like get it, and they couldn't save him. I mean, obviously it was just too. They said that every, artery and vein or like whatever that was going to the heart was severed. It's just that
Well,
we
the
couldn't.
main ones were.
I mean, he was the crazy thing about it is that after John Lennon got shot, because like I said, he didn't know what was happening. He got shot in the back.
Yeah.
He was still alive. Like he crawled a little way. Like he ran and he kind of crawled a little way. And when they picked him up, because they said when he was laying there, they said he still had a pulse, and he was still kind of talking. Like so, he was still kind of conscious.
It was all adrenaline.
Yeah.
The doctor said he had been hit 4 times.
Yeah.
And 3 of them were survivable, but one of them got the artery coming out of the heart, and he said that had John been shot in the fucking emergency room itself, they wouldn't have been able to save him.
Yeah, that's what he said.
They were just they would fucking
because the cops felt really bad.
Would,
It's like they weren't fast enough. They're like, bro, if he'd been shot here,
it would have been.
We couldn't have saved him
because the heart was pumping the blood out.
Yeah, it was just not
into the fucking.
It wasn't attached
into the abdomen. It wasn't going anything. So that's why he was able to move for a little bit. But he ran out of blood. He pumped it all out into his abdominal cavity.
Yeah, he lost. They said they lost about 80% of his blood volume.
He wouldn't have made it, and it's a shame because the other 3 he would have survived. 38 Special. It's a revolver cartridge. It's very old. It's late 1800s. It started off as a black powder cartridge that got converted into smokeless. And for safety reasons, when they converted to smokeless, it's very much an empty case. It's about half full of powder. If you fill it up with powder, you got 357 Magnum. But you don't want that out there because they'll put that in 38 Specials and blow them up. So they lengthened it a little bit in a revolver so you couldn't put a 357 Magnum in load into a 38 Special pistol. That's why it's a little bit longer, like 1/8 of an inch. And it's not very high velocity, and it doesn't expand. Especially out of little snub-nosed Charter Arms Bulldog we had, which was a subcompact 38. It's small for a revolver. Revolvers are fat, you know what I mean? Even a small revolver is big by today's standards. But back in those days, that's what they used. And not a very destructive cartridge. A little bit more than 380, which is a small automatic pistol card, very small. We consider that a pocket pistol. And 3 of them, he would have lived. But what gets you is shot placement.
Yeah.
That's what gets you. One of them got that artery coming out of that heart, and it wouldn't have mattered what it was. It would have killed him. You could have shot him there with a .22, and it would have killed him. Shot placement is the king. And just by chance, that's where it hit him.
Yep.
Shame.
And like I said, Mark David Chapman shot 5 times.
Yeah.
One of them missed. It went into the building.
4 hit.
4 of them.
And 3 of them were survivable. And 1 hit a fucking fatal hit.
Yeah.
Had that shot missed or just went over a few inches or an inch, he'd have survived the shooting.
Yeah, that's what's fucked up about it.
Yeah. Luck. Bad luck.
That's terrible luck.
Yeah.
Well, it's not luck because this dude fucking chose to do this.
Well, I'm saying bad luck in terms of shot placement.
Yeah, for him.
You could say, well, 3 of them he would have survived. In a way, that's very good luck. But 1 of them was bad luck.
Yeah.
You know. Fucking.
The fucked up thing is that, so Well, they get to the hospital. They're working on him. They're trying to save him, and the doctor comes out. It's like, man, we're sorry, we couldn't do anything. Like I said, even if he's been shot here, it's like we couldn't do anything. And they told Yoko, and she freaked the fuck out. And she said, and they said she'd been. They're like, we took her in the police car to the hospital. They're like, she was not hysterical. They're like, but she was very clearly in shock. Because like I said, she was right there. Like he got shot like right next to her. So it's just kind of like, she was just kind of out of it. And when they told her, she said, can you not tell the media until I tell our son, Sean, who is 5, I don't want him to hear it on the news. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he's still up, and, you know, I don't want him to see it on TV that his dad is dead. Like, I want to be able to tell him. And so they said that they would wait until she went home to see, like, if Sean was still awake or whatever. So they kind of kept it off. But the crazy thing was, like, the cops that the first responders, they said that it was like an hour and a half after the shooting. There's like, you went back to the Dakota, there was like 1,000 fucking people in the street. And they were already putting up roses and shit like that. It's like, it was crazy. And it was just like, it's like 11 o'clock, midnight. It was like midnight. And it's like, there was like thousands of people in the street already. They had already heard about it. Like, as soon as they heard about it, they came out. And it was just like fucking insane. So there was like just this whole, I mean, obviously, for days after it, it was just kind of like a global fucking grieving, pretty much. I mean, John Lennon was, like I said, he was a cultural icon. And the fact that he was just like gunned down by some nobody motherfucker, and he's still a nobody, as much as he tried to not be that.
Yeah. We're talking about him, but he's still a man of no consequence, really.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just kind of like, I mean...
He's generic.
The thing about it is that I think that his goal, perhaps, was to be... He wanted to usurp John Lennon. He wanted to be John Lennon. But it's just kind of like, you're just a footnote.
Yeah.
John Lennon is still... Everybody knows John Lennon. Yeah. Everybody just knows you as like, oh, you're the guy that killed John Lennon. What an asshole. Yeah. That's like pretty much it.
Yeah, you're non-productive. And you're of no consequence. Nobody really cares about you. So you failed.
Yeah.
You know, they're not that curious. You know, they look into you and you go, oh, there's not much to this guy. So you're not interested.
Yeah, he's just like a loser. He's just like a loser. I mean, he was mentally ill. That's not great. But it's just kind of like, you know, if the only way that you can be somebody, which seems to be what he wanted, is to kill a famous person.
Yeah, well,
you've already lost.
He thought a negative action by killing a famous person would make him consequential.
Yeah.
That's what he thought. But it didn't. You're still just as
fucking deluded.
You're just as inconsequential as you were before.
You're just the loser that shot John Lennon, and now everyone's sending you death threats because you killed fucking John Lennon.
Yeah, yeah.
Who was a beloved figure around the world. You're just some dipshit.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't work.
You're just some dipshit.
But he's mentally ill, so he didn't. He couldn't see it that way.
He didn't think of it like that. Yeah. But it's like normal people think of it like that. You're just some dipshit that killed a beloved, famous icon.
Yeah.
And everyone hates you now. Good job.
I don't even think that. Because that requires effort. You're a man of consequence when you're hated. You don't even really register. It's just it's like ambivalence. You're like, oh yeah, that's zero. So you didn't really gain anything.
Honestly, I kind of feel like dudes like that, because they're narcissists, because they do that to achieve fame. I think the worst thing you can do to them is just forget who they are.
Yeah, well, that's what most people don't know this dude's name. Most people don't know this guy's name.
Everybody knows who John Lennon is, though.
Yeah, they know who John Lennon is.
Yeah.
And then you're like, this guy. And then when they hear about the guy, they're like, oh, okay. But this dude's instantly forgotten because there's nothing there. That's one of the reasons why serial killers do a lot of shit that they do. They try to get negative charisma, which only works for a very small amount of people, like those serial killer groupies. Which maybe that's maybe that's come up for them.
But serial killer groupies have their own mental illness.
They have their own mental illness, right? But most people, they don't really think serial killers are really of any consequence.
No, they're just
trying
losers.
to be very important, but It doesn't really work out that
And
way.
I kind of feel like, I think that watching the shit about Mark David Chapman, that kind of gave me, he's not a serial killer, obviously, but I feel like the narcissism is the same, like the mindset is kind of similar.
I think it is, yeah.
Where it's just kind of like, well, I can't be cool, like, on my own terms. Like,
Yeah.
I can't do anything. Like, you don't have to be famous or rich or anything like that, but you could just, like, do cool shit, like, in your life and have people appreciate you, have people that
Yeah.
love you. It's just kind of like, that's what most people have. And most people are happy with that. But it's like, I don't know, like, for him, it just wasn't enough. He wanted to be as famous as John Lennon. He thought he should be world famous for some reason, even though there was nothing to him. And I kind of feel like that's pretty common with this type of personality where there's nothing to them, but they somehow think that the world should worship them for some reason.
Kind of like the world's greatest gentleman. He thought he was...
That's what I mean. It's almost like an incel kind of thing, like Elliot Rodger, where he's
Elliot
just,
Rodgers.
yeah, he's just kind of like,
He's
well,
mediocre.
Well, I'm super awesome, so
Yeah.
everyone should just worship me, like,
Yeah.
out the gate, like they don't have to do anything.
Yeah, and he was mediocre.
Yeah, and they're just
Yeah.
regular ass people, and
Yeah.
I don't understand like why most people are regular ass people.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, you can achieve a lot in that framework,
Yeah.
but dudes like this can't. There's
I don't really get it.
There's something self-defeating about what they're doing. It has the opposite effect.
I get I get the mindset where you want to be more than you are. Like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's ambition.
Yeah.
You need to have some measure of ambition to get anywhere
Yeah,
in
but
the
that's
world.
built slowly over time.
Otherwise, you're just gonna lay around on the couch.
Yeah.
But like,
And you got to have something. You got to have a specialty, and you build it slowly over time.
but there
and you work
comes the
on it.
thing too where you have to like manage your expectations.
Yeah.
Like most people are not going to be globally fucking famous.
No.
Like that's a very tiny percentage.
You got to be liked in your friend group. That's really all you should worry about.
I mean, honestly, if you are successful in your life and you have
Yeah.
people that love you and care about you and stuff, I
Yeah.
mean, that's really,
That's-
you should be happy with that. Most people don't get that. So I don't see this whole thing where you're just dissatisfied. And most people have perfectly good lives like that.
Yep.
And I don't really understand, like, it was, well, I need more. I need everybody to love me.
It's because what it is. Is because
You know, I don't get that.
they're arguing from a viewpoint of shallowness. They want a shallow, superficial fame. You know what I mean? A mainstream corporate type fame.
Yeah.
But they don't have the skills. They don't have the marketability for that. They're not producing the right things to do.
I mean,
that.
most people are not that
Most
famous.
people don't.
Especially
most people don't.
nowadays.
Right. And then a lot of people who do have that have kind of like an imposter syndrome because the product that they're making that they're selling to the world in those, especially in the old media, wasn't really who they were.
Yeah.
They're kind of like
They're just putting on
they're
a persona
one
to, like,
person-
sell something.
yeah, and they're one person in a team with a company behind them or like a record label who are trying to produce this thing, and it's a whole production team. And really, the guy you're seeing front of show, you know, the vocalist or whatever, he's really just one of the players on the team. He's not making all this shit happen per se.
Well, yeah, that's another
Yeah.
thing too, and I think that's particularly insidious in American culture because it's very individualistic.
Yeah.
So kind of feel like everybody's like, oh, if somebody's successful, they did that all on their own. No, of course
No.
they didn't. There was
They're
like
in
a
a
whole
team.
team behind them. There was a
Yeah.
whole society behind them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of gave them the opportunities to get to that point. So it's a little disingenuous to just come out as one single motherfucker and say that you did everything.
Yeah.
Like to do, because nobody does.
Yeah,
No.
no.
Nobody is an island.
Yeah, good example, Billy Idol. He had no career, basically kind of kicked out of England after Generation X broke up. He goes to fucking New York, ends up fucking getting signed by Chrysalis Records. They hook him up with Steve Stevens. Together, and Chrysalis Records came up with an act, an album, and a tour, and everything. Billy was just one of the players in the team. He was front of house, I guess you could say. But without all that support, he never would have happened. It was a group effort. And Duran Duran was like that too.
I mean, most things are like that.
Yeah, they're a show. They're a product.
Yeah.
You know.
Like I said, I kind of feel like, particularly in American culture, people like to think of this like lone individual that just
made
did
all
all
this
this
shit
stuff
happen.
by themselves, and it's
No.
like that is never the case.
No, it's an act. It's a show.
Never.
It's like it's on par with Siegfried and Roy, the fucking lion tamers. It's like that. It doesn't happen organically.
Think of all the people that work behind the scenes
Yeah.
to make that happen.
And the money behind the scenes.
Sure.
And
That's
everything.
what I mean, and it's like I think people like forget about.
It's not
that.
very organic. Now, once you're working with something, they can play off of that. And if it's successful and the money starts running in, it has some organic elements to it. But it's
Sure.
a show.
I mean, you have to have
it's an
talent to
act.
start with.
Yeah, yeah.
They have to have something to work with.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff that you see is
Yeah.
not all that person. It's like
Yeah.
a whole team of people.
When I saw Billy fucking at Pine Knob Theater for the fucking Whiplash Smile Tour, one of the best shows ever. Fucking Cult opened up for him and everything. I'm seeing Billy Idol fucking press this motherfucker. But I was already a drama kid. I knew what I was looking at. He's got fantastic backup singers, hot as shit. The fucking Steve is out there fucking playing. The lights, the sound
Yeah, you
crew.
get the lighting guy,
The
the
fucking
sound-
stage
yeah,
guys.
everything.
Fucking everything. This is a show. It was a fucking show.
Yeah, it's a whole crew.
Right. So
Okay.
he's playing center stage.
He gets all the credit.
Front of house, but it's a group effort.
He gets all the credit.
Yeah, yeah,
But-
and he's playing a role,
Yeah.
even though some of it might be loosely based on what he does or what he is.
Sure.
But they bought a lot of those songs too,
True.
so that's another thing. So the songwriting back in those days, and it probably still is, but the money was too big. If a fucking record label was behind you, man, fucking they were putting millions of dollars into you to make a fucking shit ton of money. They weren't gonna let you write your own songs. What are you talking about? They had songwriters
I mean,
that
they
knew how
might
to write
let
a
you,
Billy
but then they'd be like, "No, we're not."
no,
doing
no,
that."
no. They had songwriters that could write a Billy Idol
we're not
song.
doing
We know what you should sound. You pick one. Okay, yeah, pick that one. That's a good one. I'll just do that one.
Like you can do your own spin on it.
Yeah,
but
dude, you're
that's-
exactly.
yeah.
Like fucking Billy, Don't You Forget About Me was written for Billy Idol. He said no to that one. Fucking
Written for
Simply Minds got it.
Simple Minds.
Simple Minds got it. They bought it. They bought that
And they
song.
also had a huge hit with it.
Same thing happened with Duran Duran. A lot of their fucking songs were fucking spot on for a long, long time. Then when Big Thing came out, it started to go down. Well, that's because the songwriters really kind of weren't there. Maybe it was different songwriters were involved. But they had dudes back in the days that goes, Duran Duran, yeah, I can write a Duran Duran song. And they'd write a Duran Duran song. How do you like that one? Yeah, that's a Duran Duran song. And then they buy it. And the dudes that were writing those songs were fat dudes. They were fat. In Hollywood, driving fucking convertibles. They were millionaires too. Nobody knew who they were. And
Which
really,
is kind of the best kind of fame, really.
yeah. And there was only 10 of them.
You have like a bunch of money, and
They were writing all the
nobody
pop
knows
songs.
who you are.
All those 80s pop song hits were written by 10 dudes. And
That's why I always thought
40
it'd be
bands.
so cool to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
like, I more admired like really famous like novelists because like they made a fuck ton of money because they sold a lot of books, but nobody really knew what they looked like.
Yeah.
So they could still like walk around in public and nobody
Yeah.
would recognize
Yeah,
them
yeah.
because most people don't read. So it's just kind of like, yeah, you'll read my books, but you don't know what my face looks like. So they could walk around like in public and just be
Yeah.
regular, but they would also still have lots of money.
But that was kind of
So I
like,
always thought that was the coolest kind of like. fucking-
that was kind of like a down low fucking music industry fucking secret, is that a lot of those hit songs were written by the same guys, even though different bands did it. And that had been going on for a long time. That went all the way back to the 50s. A lot of rock and roll bands would buy songs. Elvis didn't write any of his songs. He bought all those songs.
And a lot of those were covers.
And he was open about that he bought those songs. And that was just part of the industry. Nashville was like that.
Fullman on Nosferatu said, I was 6 when this happened, John Lennon getting murdered. And I remember my dad waking me up for school the next morning and breaking the news. So surreal. My aunt was beyond devastated. Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, I was 8 when this happened. Like, I vaguely remember it happening. But I was, still a kid. And I remember being really upset, but it's just kind of like, I don't think I understood the gravity of it, like, at that age. But... man, I can't fucking imagine. So yeah. So they go back. Like I said, Mark David Chapman did not resist arrest. He was right there. He had his hand up. He had the fucking Catcher in the Rye like in his fucking pocket and all this other kind of shit.
Yeah, the cop was like, I hid his book. What was this book all about? He didn't understand.
Yeah, that was
he turned it
his
in.
that was his statement because he thought he wanted to he said he wanted to disappear into the book.
Yeah.
Like he thought he was Holden Caulfield.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Did you read Catcher in the Rye in school?
No, I didn't even know.
Oh, we did. Yeah, it's a great book, but like I said, it's one of those books that is often misinterpreted, and picked up by really lame ass people to justify shit that they did, as in this case. So they arrest him, and at first, he was gonna go for an insanity plea. So he was going not guilty by reason of insanity, but then, right when they were all showing up for the pretrial whatever, he shows up and he says that God told him, and his lawyer said don't do this, but he says God told him that he should plead guilty. So he did. He pled guilty. His lawyer was like, what the fuck are you doing? But yeah, he did that. I mean, he probably could have got away with insanity plea. You know what I mean? Because he was pretty fucked up. But he knew, well, here's the thing. I don't think he would have got insanity because the insanity defense, I know people like to throw it around, but it's very, very, very difficult to prove insanity in a court that you're not guilty.
Not by
you
American
basically
standards,
have to say that it's like you're so insane that you didn't know what you were doing was wrong. So anything you do to like cover up the crime, that's going to work against you because like, well, obviously you knew it was wrong because you tried to hide it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he didn't try to hide it, but I mean, they did like assessments and stuff and they're like, he knew what he was doing was wrong though. You know, like he's crazy, but he's not that crazy. So it didn't work, but he pleaded guilty anyways. But yeah, he referred to himself as the Catcher from The Catcher in the Rye. Like he was super, super into that book. You guys don't even know. So he got sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. Now he did get mental health treatment all that time. He went to Attica at first. Then he got moved to like a couple other prisons. Now he has been up for parole 14 times as of this podcast, but every single time they're just like, no. You know what I mean? Like I said, I think the last time was 2024. They say he has recently expressed remorse for what he did. He's also, I will note, gotten a lot of death threats from other prisoners and from people outside the prison because he killed fucking John Lennon.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, people like that are fans and stuff like that are gonna be like, you motherfucker, like, what the fuck? So
he's gonna be in there for life. He's never getting.
Yeah, I don't think they're letting him out. Nor should they. Like I said, I think his mental illness is too profound. I wouldn't have been mad if they had put him in a mental hospital for the rest of his life, either, because I do think there's something wrong with him. But now that he's in prison, that's fine. I don't think they should let him out. So yeah, I kind of feel like this whole thing, man, this was just like a fucking shitty ass situation all around. Because the thing about it is that Mark David Chapman was a severely disturbed person. He had in mind that he just wanted to kill someone famous so he could be famous. And he had a couple of other people on the docket. Like I said, he had been a fan of John Lennon as a kid. And I kind of feel like he had that whole, because he was a born-again Christian and John Lennon had made the comment about being more popular than Jesus and all that other kind of stuff. So I kind of feel like that played into a little bit. But I think mainly it was just like a crime of opportunity. Like I said, John Lennon was available. He lived right there in the Dakota. Everybody knew he lived there. He came and went like a regular person. So you had access to him the way that you maybe wouldn't, like for some of the other celebrities that he was thinking about assassinating. So I think it was just that. And holy shit, it's just like, I don't know, like I remember this happening, but it's just kind of like watching documentaries and reading about it again. It just goes to show like how fucking it doesn't matter like how famous you are, how vulnerable or how rich you are. It's like you're always vulnerable. You could just be like walking to your fucking apartment, and like some dumbass like comes up and like fucking shoots you in the back, which is exactly what happened. And that kind of, or you know, like we said with that actress before, who's fucking, what was her fucking name, man? I can't remember. But you know, where somebody just shows up at your door and just like you open the door and they just shoot you in the fucking chest. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's this whole kind of thing just bummed me out. But you know, all right. I don't know if Tom left for good or if he's coming back, or I'm not really sure. Like he just leaves and it's like I don't really know what's going on. But yeah, so I don't know. This whole kind of thing like bummed me out, but maybe I should have kept the fun stuff for
Yeah,
for
that
the
was a good
end.
thing.
But well no, well
sounds
because
good.
I know how it goes, because I know that this part took up such a long time that it's like by the time I got done with this, I'd have been like, oh, I don't really want to talk about the other stuff. But it's just kind of like, yeah.
All right, well, look, the next show is Friday. Friday, we got to go to the club. Oh, got another super chat.
Oh, thank you very much. Klaus gave us another super
Thanks,
chat
Klaus.
with the little happy pair with the
Thank you.
with the little.
Friday, we got to go to the club. But we're going to do the show before
We'll
we
do
go.
the show before, because we don't actually have to leave until a little bit later, because
Yeah.
it doesn't actually start till 10:30.
So we'll be dressed up for the Friday show.
Oh, I want to ask everybody. Okay, so I'm just gonna do an informal poll right here. I'm thinking about getting my Halloween costume together. Now, remember earlier that I said I might do Constance Hatchaway from the Disney Haunted Mansion. I don't know if I want to do that now, because it seems a little dowdy. Now, because we just watched Murder in a Blue World, and then because of that, somebody mentioned in that chat that documentary, A Forbidden Orange, which is about a clockwork orange and how it got shown in Spain, which was a fascinating story, actually. I didn't really know anything about it. So it was on HBO Max, and I watched that the other night. And I was just kind of like, man, now I want to do a Droog. I want to do Alex.
I would do a sexy female. Alex.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I want to do sexy Droog, but sexy Alex DeLarge.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of like, but on the other hand, so I either want to do that or I want to do Black Swan.
Black Swan, I forgot you on that. Which one was that?
The one with Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. Yeah, I forgot what she was dressed like though. Nobody would
It was
recognize that.
like a black. No, they would.
Yeah.
If you do the face makeup, everybody would know.
Okay.
Everybody would know what that was.
Right. I would do the Droog.
That's what I was thinking. So I picked all the stuff out on Amazon and I put it on a wish list. And I was just kind of like, it's about $100.
You can get the mask, you can get the derby, you can get.
Thank you very much, SideQuest. Gave us a.
What's up, SideQuest? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good show.
I would
Enjoyed
do
it.
like black boots, fucking.
Well, I got the
white
boots
pants.
already.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be boobalicious.
Well, okay.
Fucking-
Here's what I picked out.
Yeah.
I got white like yoga leggings.
Okay. Yeah.
I got like a white, because he had like a white like collared long sleeve shirt. I got
Yeah.
one like that, but it's like fitted
Okay. Yeah.
and like button up so you can like
Yeah.
unbutton it. So I got that.
white
I got
corset.
maybe I might do a white corset too. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see how much it costs.
All right.
I
We
got
could use that
I got a beige jockstrap.
Yeah.
I got beige suspenders.
Okay. Yeah.
I got the hat. I got the lashes.
Mm-hmm.
I got the cane.
All right.
I also got. I was thinking about, because I was like, man, how can I like elevate this a little bit?
One
I was gonna.
eyelash.
I was gonna get. You know how he had the snake Basil.
Yeah.
So I was gonna get like a fake boa constrictor and do that, but it's like I couldn't really find one that looked good.
That's going overboard. You don't.
So,
need that.
well, no, I found a necklace that was like a boa constrictor. I was like, maybe I'll do that because that's kind of low key.
All right.
Because I was gonna get a Beethoven one.
All right.
But the Beethoven necklace I found didn't look good. So it's
Alright.
like, because I was going to do like a whole back of the shirt where it's like with Beethoven on it. Because he
Yeah.
was like really into Beethoven. So I was going to do that, but I was like, nah, never mind. So I got all that. And then I've already got the boots. Because he wore like short boots.
Yeah.
And I have a couple pairs of boots like that. So I've already got the boots. So I just need the leggings, the jockstrap, the suspenders.
Jockstrap's got a protector
shirt.
in it. It's got a cup in it.
I know.
Yeah.
But I had to get one because the
Yeah.
Droogs wore that they were like off-white.
Yeah.
Because the outfit was white,
Well, yeah, with like a
but
tan.
the jock strap and
Was-
but they
was
were like
nude.
beige.
Yeah, nude.
I thought about getting gray too, but I couldn't like find the right
Yeah.
color. So I got just beige.
I think the Droog. I'd do the Droog.
So that's what I'm
From
thinking
the
about
cover.
doing.
The cane.
Yeah, I got a cane. It's $10.
And cuffs. Didn't you have like cuffs with lapels? Or cuff with the cufflinks?
I don't know.
Didn't they have
yeah.
cuff? Because his cuff was an eyeball.
Oh
Remember his
shit! I
cufflink
need to
was
look
an
that
eyeball?
up.
His cuff was an eyeball with blood coming out of it.
I need to look that up.
Yeah.
Maybe we should rewatch that movie just so I can see.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I'm doing. Like I said, my backup was Black Swan. I have stuff picked out for that too. But that would actually be slightly cheaper, but not that much cheaper to do. Not really.
No, gender swapped fucking Alex would be cool.
I think that would look cool.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I just got reminded. I mean, Clockwork Orange is one of my favorite movies ever. Yeah. And just watching that documentary about Clockwork Orange showing in Spain and how it was like this big fucking deal, and I was just kind of like, man, I should be sexy Droog.
Yeah.
Like, or sexy Alex.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with my hair. I might just like tuck it into the hat or whatever, but I don't know. I think that might be fun.
Yeah.
I'll see about the corset.
Yeah, and a white bra.
Well, yeah, I got a white bra in there too.
Okay, yeah.
But like I said, I'll see how the white corset. I'll see how the shirt fits.
It will work. And then I would just get cuffs, like like a Playboy bunny wears.
Yeah, yeah.
Just no sleeve, just cuff.
Yeah.
And the hat. See.
Yeah, I got all the stuff picked out.
Yeah.
It's just I'll order it all and see. Hopefully, it all fits right.
Yeah, right.
You know.
Do you want to get something to eat?
Yeah, let's get
something here. You want to go somewhere?
I don't really feel like going anywhere.
Okay,
do
I'll
you?
here. Hey, I can do sandwiches.
All right. Let me see. Hold on. I wanted to answer a couple of things. Yeah, Full Metal Nosferatu said, Jenny, totally be a Droog.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked Forbidden Orange. Yeah, it was great. That, like I said, I didn't know any of that. I knew vaguely about
once I saw
the history of it being banned in Europe and stuff like that, but I didn't know specifically this whole cultural thing about it was banned in Spain because it was, Franco at the time, and it was just like there was a bunch of like film censorship and stuff, and it was just like there was this little bitty university town that wanted to show it like for their film festival, and it was this big rigmarole, and it was this huge cultural. It was like really interesting.
Once I understood the cultural context, the movie made sense.
Yeah, it was really
made sense.
Really
once I understood, it still wasn't a good movie, but I think fucking. Under the cultural context,
talking about Murder in a Blue World is what you're talking about.
Murder in a Blue World, or fucking Clockwork.
They did mention that in the documentary.
It would have made more sense under the context to me.
Yeah.
Had I been there at that time, I probably would have liked it. But actually, I liked the documentary explaining it more than I liked the movie.
I do too, to be honest with you. They did like talk about Murder in a Blue World a little bit in there. It's mostly in Spanish because, like I said, it's set in Spain. But Malcolm McDowell does do some voiceover for it, kind of talking about some background and talking about Stanley Kubrick and stuff. But it's like it's on HBO Max still. Like that's where I watched it. So if you want to watch it, it's like I said, I found it really interesting because I didn't really know a lot of that context. So I thought that was really cool. So thank you for recommending that Full Metal Nosferatu because that was like actually really good. But yeah, so I think I might go with that. Like I said, Black Swan was the backup. But I was like, man, I really
Droog would be better.
I really want to do the Droog, yeah. So I think that's what I'm gonna do because I already have the boots and everything.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be fun. I have everything picked out like on Amazon. I just haven't bought it yet. I want to get it early just in case shit doesn't fit right and I have to get something else, you know what I mean? And the thing about it is that they actually have Droog costumes, dude ones that you can buy. They're not like super common or anything, but I have seen them like at Halloween stores and stuff, but I don't think they don't have any women one. I'm not doing like a variation. I'm going to do it close to how it looks, but more fitted, you know what I mean? 'Cause I'm doing like white yoga pants instead of just like the regular like white pants, you know what I mean? Because I want it to be like more fitted. I don't want it to be like baggy. So that's what I'm going to do. But I want it to look kind of close to what it looked like so everybody knows what it is. So that's what I'm going to do. We will be back for the Friday night show, Sidetracks. We are going out to Abyss on Friday night, but we'll probably do the show for, I don't know, maybe probably 2 hours, I'd imagine. We can probably do like a 2-hour show. Because like I said, we don't have to leave till 10.
Yeah.
So we can do the show from 7:30 to 9:30. And as long as we don't get too drunk. You know what I mean? Like driving there. But yeah, so thank you everybody for hanging out with us this evening. Thank you very much for your super chats. They're always appreciated. We will see you guys again for the Sidetrack show on Friday night. Hope you guys can all join us for that. Have a very good evening. Have a very good day tomorrow. Good night.